All right, let's get it. It is time now for the drive on a Thursday afternoon. It's about 7 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. It is rainy. It is cold. We are in the midst of the beginning of one of the biggest snowstorms that we've had all year up in the mountains. It's going to be rainy and cold pretty much all day today, and we'll see what happens over the weekend. It is Utah in March, so you never know how this is going to go. In for some snow coming up tomorrow on Friday, and very chilly Saturday. Then looks like it's going to warm up potentially on Sunday and Monday and then drop back down into the 30s next week. It's called March in Utah. It's just the deal. But as it is every single day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic. We are out and about today. Porter Larson back at our downtown Salt Lake City Broadway Media Studios today. We are at Tim Daly Auto in Murray. It's 4545 South State Street. And let me give you some advice. Put that in your GPS and follow it. Don't get cute. I went to 3 different stops before I finally landed here. So Tim Daly used Auto Mart in Murray at 4545 South and Main Street. Huge selection of EV and hybrid vehicles that qualify for a new incentive. So in case you didn't hear this, it is a brand new thing. Legislation was introduced recently that could save you thousands. Senate Bill 541 will eliminate the used vehicle tax incentive, which is up to $4,000. So here at Tim Daly Auto Mart in Murray at 4545 South in Maine, they have a huge selection of EV and hybrid vehicles that qualify for this incentive. Excuse me. Still fighting the whole thing that we've been fighting all week. So we're going to see if we can get through another 4-hour show today. So this is BMWs, Kias, and more. So come on by. BMWs, Kias, and more. So come on by. Be here until 6 o'clock tonight. We would love to meet you and say hello. All right, we have got a busy, jam-packed show today with a lot of topics to get to. BYU with a very, very impressive win earlier this morning. Did you miss it? Did you know that the game was being played? I believe it tipped off at 10:30 Mountain Time. BYU ran into a little good fortune as Iowa State found themselves a little bit banged up today. They were without Keyshawn Gilbert, who's their second leading scorer, and they were without the Lipsy kid, who's a 2-time All-Big 12 point guard. So you could say 2 of their 3 best players did not play. So BYU a little fortunate to run into a short-handed Iowa State team, but it was a high-level basketball game. It was a high-level basketball game played by both teams, and BYU most likely will advance to play Houston, but Colorado might have some different ideas. Now, I would be surprised if this holds up, but Colorado is hanging in against Houston right now. Houston has a 38-33 halftime lead over Colorado. We'll see what the second half brings. There's a bevy of college basketball action going on right now. We will keep you up to date throughout the course of the show today. One of the big pieces of news that came down a little bit earlier is Cooper Flagg left Duke's game with the replays looked horrible, not going to lie, but Duke beat Georgia Tech today 78-70. They pulled away in the second half after Tech had a halftime lead. And Cooper Flagg sprained his ankle, and upon replay, it looked like it was going to be really bad. Excuse me. John Shire, the Duke head coach, came out and said the x-rays are negative. So hopefully Cooper Flagg's going to be okay. But we'll keep you up to date on all the basketball going on right now as it is the madness of March. On the Big 12 side of things, like I said, Houston has a 38-33 halftime lead over Colorado, and the winner of that game will advance on to play BYU. Utah Jazz with another loss last night. Stop me if you've heard me before. And, yes, they competed. They played hard. All the cute things we're supposed to say. But they lost again. They've lost 9 of their last 10. They've lost 7 straight games. Grizzlies got them last night, 122-115. The Jazz were actually up 115-114. And then the Grizzlies scored the final 8 points of the game, and the Jazz move on to yet another loss. Some more information has emerged about that $100,000 fine that the Jazz were handed yesterday for not playing Lauri Markkanen for 9 straight games. And Jazz have lost 9 of 10. So, of course, sitting Markkanen has helped them achieve their goal of playing pathetic basketball and continuing to lose. But some more information about how it all came down and then what could happen next if they continue to try to kind of play with this rule that the league implemented back in 2010 as a result of Greg Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs constantly sitting their stars. So we'll get to some of that. The NFL free agency news has kind of quieted down a little bit today, but we do know which Utah football players will be participating in Big 12 NFL Day coming up March 18th through the 21st. So we do have that list. We'll bring that to you. And there's one name on the list that a little bit disappointing if it means what I think it means. And we'll get to that list coming up in a little bit. Utah Hockey Club was able to get a win last night against the Ducks. They're going to take on the Kraken coming up tomorrow at 8 o'clock Mountain Time. That game is up in Seattle. So Utah Hockey Club trying to hang in that wild card race. RSL on the road coming up this weekend at Houston. A road tilt for RSL after a really, really bad start to the season. And then Utah State in action tonight, Mountain West tournament style, against a really, really good upstart Vegas team. UNLV's played a lot better as of late. Utah State's the favorite, but we'll see what they're able to do tonight. So a lot of local stuff going on the basketball side, on the hockey side. Little pro football with free agency and the draft on the way. Little college football with Big 12 Pro Day, Big 12 NFL Pro Day coming up in just about a week and a half. And several Ute players will be represented. So we'll bring you that list coming up in a little bit. The latest on the Alex Jensen to Utah storyline, and is Alex getting closer to filling out his staff? Is Andre Miller high speed ahead to coming back to Salt Lake to coach next to Alex Jensen? We'll bring you the latest with that. And then Aaron Rodgers apparently debating between the Steelers and the Giants. So jam-packed show on this Thursday afternoon as we're live today with our good friends at Tim Daly. It's the used car portion of their operation. Tim Daly Auto Mart in Murray. It's 4545 South Main Street. Come on by and check out if you're eligible for this $4,000 used car tax credit. They'll help you understand if that's part of the deal. And if you are, you can save $4,000 on a Tesla. You can save $4,000 on a BMW or an Audi. And we have Sportsman's Expo passes. I don't know what this is, but you guys can go for free. So the International Sportsman's Expo, it's coming up at the Mountain America Expo Center, March 20th through the 23rd. And we've got a bunch of 4-packs of passes. So if you know what it is and you're excited about it, you can come on out and I'll just hand it to you and give you a high five. Free high fives all day. How about that? Putting that on the table. All right, our first guest right out of the gates will be Tony Jones. Tony covers the Jazz and the NBA for The Athletic. He does do a lot of draft stuff. And when Tony joined us a couple of weeks ago, it was the day that Mark Carlin had announced that he had relieved Craig Smith of his duties. And Tony was one of the first who said, this has got to go to Alex. This has got to go to Alex Jensen. So we're bringing Tony today. Now that the news is official, we'll talk Alex Jensen of the Utes. And we will also get Tony's take on some of these young prospects that you guys can watch during March Madness to get a little bit more familiar as to why the Jazz are just doing what they're doing, which is unserious about winning to try to get a good pick. After Tony stops by, the last time we had Josh Grant on the show, our guy was very salient, he was very poignant, he was very honest. And now that Josh got his wish, that Alex Jensen is high speed ahead to coach the Utes, what does he have to say today? He joins us after Tony stops by. Behind the Glass segment that we do every single week to talk some Utah Hockey Club and some NHL with Neil Smith. And then NBA Daily Assist style with one of the celebrity reporters that joins our show on a regular basis. He is Dave McMenamin on a Thursday afternoon and talk some NBA. Kind of a lighter night in the NBA tonight. Last night, a couple really fun games. OKC beat Boston at TD Garden. And the Celtics did not play Kristaps Porzingis, so we've got to kind of keep that in mind. But only 5 games in the NBA tonight, and that's really odd for a mid-March tilt. The Lakers are in action, so we'll get with Dave about the latest in Los Angeles. They're going to take on the Bucks, which should be a good game. And then Sacramento Golden State is your late game. Turner Sports has the double dip tonight, so at least we get a little inside the NBA. All right, Tony Jones, Josh Grant, Neil Smith, Dave McMenamin, me, Spence Checketts, live today out here with our friends at Tim Daly. So come on by and say what's up. See if you qualify for that $4,000 used car savings. It is 4545 South Main Street. We also have free Sportsman's Expo passes for you just for stopping by and saying hi. And as I just put on the table, high fives all day for free. Come on by. 4545 South Main Street with Tony Jones, with Josh Grant, with Neil Smith, with Dave McMenamin, with me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners, and about a 25-minute drive from where we find ourselves in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. is where we find the producer of this program, Porter Larson, on a rainy, chilly, cold Thursday afternoon. All right, how much of the madness, like if you want to, you can wake up, do the coffee thing, do the breakfast burrito thing, and you can start watching hoops early. How early do you start watching the madness this time of year when it's conference championship?
Yeah, I try to get all the games in as far as conference and NCAA tournament goes. Now, of course, some of them are going to overlap a little bit, but pretty much the second my eyes crack open, man, if there's conference basketball, if there's postseason basketball on the college or the pro side, it's going to be at least up and on the television in some form. So, yeah, I've been dialed in tightly, and of course, we had the early tip-off with BYU in action this morning, and the late one with Utah State tonight, the nightcapper. So it's literally, Spence, from like 9 a.m. to midnight if you're a fan of local college hoops tonight, and hopefully maybe a few tickets punched to the big dance as well.
BYU's really good, man. They are playing high-level basketball. That was a fun game this morning. Tony Jones will be our first guest right out of the gates today on a Thursday, 45 South Main Street with our good friends out here at Tim Dolly. But before we get to Tony, courtesy of our good friends at Prize Picks on a Thursday afternoon, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
Let's go back to the studio where Porter Larson is an expert on exactly what the International Sportsman's Expo is. So, Porter, inform the masses of what they can get when they come out here with these free passes I have in my hand.
The International Sportsman's Expo, Spence, is formerly known as like the Hunting Expo. It's hunting, fishing, outdoor, overlanding stuff. I'm sure a little bit camping, whatnot. So if you like being outside and like being cold and shooting guns, that's probably your crowd.
Stunning that I didn't know what it was. I do like to fish, but I'll leave that there. All right, come on by and grab some passes, free high fives. Prize Picks, our good friends, best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. So ultimately, just go get their free money. Try it and see if you like it. It's the easiest way to put a little action on sports if you've been looking to do that, because you don't have to learn much about the spread or the over-under or the money line. This is easy. We'll use the Jazz-Grizzlies game last night. Okay, so you predict two-player stat projections. So Lauri Markkanen played last night. Lauri Markkanen more or less than 19.5 points. On the other side, Zach Edey more or less than 2.5 blocks. Something like that. It's very easy to do. You can do it during basketball season, baseball season, football season. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 at checkout, and you get $50 when you play your first $5 bet. You don't even need to win that bet. They're just giving you free cash. So download that Prize Picks app today. Use that promo code ESPN700 to get $50 when you play your first $5 bet. All right, BYU and Iowa State this morning played a terrific basketball game. It was high-level shot making. In the first half, Iowa State could not miss. And BYU did a great job just to hang in because Curtis Jones was out of his mind. Now, Iowa State, it was announced about, 2 hours before tip, that they were going to be without their second leading scorer in Keyshawn Gilbert and a two-time All-Big 12 point guard in Tamian Lipsey. Both those players sat. They're probably two of Iowa State's three best players. So Brigham Young, with a little bit of good fortune, Iowa State essentially only played 7 dudes. The Demarion Watson kid got 5 minutes. But Iowa State was unconscious in the first half, putting up 53. And BYU just kind of held the fort down and waited for their shot making to kind of manifest. Richie Saunders is playing his way into the conversation as the Big 12 player of the year. And that's not hyperbolic. Richie was great. He was patient. He had 23 points. He had 5 assists. And he kind of let the game. What I love about Richie is he doesn't force anything. He takes what the defense gives him. He's got good size for a shooting guard. He can elevate as a jump shooter. And he can get to the 10 and finish with force. And he can guard 2 or 3 positions. I now believe Richie Saunders is an NBA player. I don't think I believed that to start the year. They had a really nice game from Keba Keita, who had 10 boards, and he had 4 offensive rebounds. 4 of 8 from the floor, 9 points, a couple of cated dunks, as you would expect. Trevin Knell hit all 4 of his three-point shots. Good to have some shot making in that direction. I'll tell you what, though, Yegor Demin continues to struggle against pressure. And it's a good thing BYU has Dallin Hall as his backup, because BYU had 10 turnovers the entire game. Demin had 4 of them, and those 4 turnovers came in the first portion of the first half when Iowa State was intentionally pressuring him. I have to wonder if moving forward, because more likely than not, and we'll keep you up to date on the game that's going on, BYU is about to play Houston in the semifinals. That game right now, Houston has a slight lead over Colorado, 38-33. And, my guess is Houston's going to run away from them in the second half. We'll kind of keep you up to date there. But BYU is going to most likely play Houston in the semifinals. And if they're not ready for that pressure, like if Yegor's not ready for that pressure, Dallin's going to have to play big minutes. Dallin was really good again. In 26 minutes, he had 7 assists and only 1 turnover. BYU taking care of the basketball last night, like they did, this morning, against a team with that type of pressure with only 10 turnovers, to me is the direct reason they won this basketball game. They made their free throws. They were 18 of 21. They made 50% of their three-point shots, which is 18 of 36. Shot 52% from the floor. But Iowa State splits are nuts. They shot 56% from the floor, 43% from three. They only shot 7 free throws, but they were shooting a lot of three-point shots. The rebounding edge went to BYU, but only slightly, 31-28. Brigham Young with 24 assists, 8 steals, 4 blocks, and only 10 turnovers. That was a high-quality basketball game, and while Iowa State was shorthanded, they gave BYU all they wanted. And now, we'll have to kind of wait and see. It's another quad win for BYU. It's their 9th straight win overall, their 5th straight win over a ranked opponent. Recently, 2 wins over Iowa State, 1 on the road, 1 on a neutral site. They dump trucked Kansas, and they beat Arizona at McHale. This is as good of a BYU team, I think, as we've had here since the Fredette stuff. I know the 2020 team was good. The team last year was good. But since Jimmer and that Brandon Davies situation that unfortunately kind of derailed the whole thing, this to me is the most talented BYU basketball team that we've seen in probably 11 or 12 years, if not more than that. They've got 2 NBA guys. By the way, Cannon Catchian sat today again. I think he's missed 6 straight games or something. Dawson Baker with some good minutes, 4 assists, no turnovers, knocked down a 3-point shot. Trey Stewart came in, played good defense, knocked down a couple of threes. The Boscovich kid continues to improve as well. He's in double figures, 10 points, 5 rebounds. And BYU has it rolling. If you're a BYU fan, get yourself excited. They're playing the right way at the right time of year. And for Utah fans, you look at this stuff and you just go, when are we ever going to get back there? It's been since 2016 since Utah has made the NCAA tournament. BYU is a lock to make it, and as they continue to evolve, can they get a top 4 seed in the tournament? Only time will tell. The latest bracketology still has them on the 5 line, but BYU marches on to the Big 12 semifinals, where they're most likely going to take on Houston, who right now has a 42-33 lead over Colorado. All right, we are live today out here with our good friends at Tim Dolly. We've been at a number of Tim Dolly locations, but this one today is a new one for us. It's the Tim Dolly Used Auto Mart in Murray at 4545 South Main Street, where there's new legislation that could allow you to save up to $4,000 on a used vehicle. You have to come in to kind of see if you qualify there. But if you do, ultimately, you can save up to $4,000 on Teslas, on Audis, on BMWs, Kias, and more. So time is running out. Not everybody qualifies, but they're going to help you understand if you do. So come on in and check it out at 4545 South Main Street here in Murray. All right, we'll catch a quick break. Coming up on the other side, Tony Jones, our first guest on a Thursday afternoon right here on ESPN 700. We're live today with our good friends at Tim Dolly. We have been at several Tim Dolly locations. This one's new for us. So come on by and say hello. See if you qualify for this new $4,000 savings on a used car at 4545 South Main Street out here in Murray. And also, we have free passes for the Sportsman's Expo. If you want to come grab a grip of those, we'll hook you up. That takes place coming up in just a couple weeks. So come on by and say what's up. All right out of the gates. Man, lucky us. First guest on a Thursday afternoon. Tony Jones from The Athletic covers these days, a number of different things. In fact, Tony, how would you characterize your current role with our friends at The Athletic?
I'm on a war tour with a mic in my hand. Let me stop.
No, currently, currently, it seems like they're using you in a bunch of different ways. So what's the gig currently, Tone?
Well, right now I'm with Denver, so I'll be with Denver for the rest of the year. The Jazz are tanking, and Philly is tanking. So, yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Now, speaking of the Jazz tanking, yesterday during the show, news drops, Tony, that the Jazz have been fined $100,000 directly for sitting Lauri Markkanen. And new information has kind of emerged where, he sat 9 straight games. There was some inconsistency, I suppose, on the injury report. I guess some team personnel said some things, then the report said other things. I can understand why Jazz fans would be a little bit confused, Tony, because every night teams are sitting players. But what are your thoughts on this, and have you been able to uncover exactly how this all went down?
Well, the thoughts on it are, who cares? The Jazz have a singular goal in mind. And, honestly, if they get anywhere in the top 3 of this draft, they're going to be fine in terms of getting – a dynamic draft prospect. So if they have to incur a 6-figure fine to do it, and it comes out of Ryan Smith's pockets, I don't want to pocket watch anybody, but my guess is that $100,000 for Ryan Smith is not very much money. The end justifies the means in that sense. So, I think Jazz fans frustration stems from this. And, it's because of the infrastructure of the NBA, how can the Jazz team build, right? So it's hard to team build. Fundamentally through free agency because it's hard for a small market like, Salt Lake City or the Jazz, no matter how, good the infrastructure of the team is, to attract free agents. Or elite free agents, or elite free agents, the kind of free agents that are program changing. The trade market at this point is hard for the Jazz to put, all of the picks together to trade for, let's just say for sake of argument, Luka Doncic or Giannis Antetokounmpo or whoever. They tried to trade for Drew Holiday. They tried to trade for Mikal Bridges. The politics behind the scenes, nixed at least one of those trades. And by that trade, I'm talking about the Drew Holiday trade because, they were right there for Drew Holiday and Drew, and they were told that Drew Holiday wants to go to Boston. So it's hard to trade, for elite guys as well. So now, the Jazz are finding out that the one avenue of really getting the guy on the roster is by going through the draft. And, now that they're doing what they have to do, the good, the bad, the ugly, in terms of having to go through the draft, the NBA has stepped in again and, find them, $100,000. So, by the letter of the law, it's correct. Lauri Markkanen has a star designation because he made the All-Star team in 2023. So, he's not a guy, by the NBA designation that just can be sitting out games to sit out games. But it's still frustrating on some levels, but like I said, the Jazz will do it, 3 or 4 times over again if that means getting Cooper Flagg or Dylan Harper.
So, excuse me, a second offense, they'll be fined 250,000. A third offense is 1.2 mil, and then every offense after that is $1 million on top of the 1.25. So, the Jazz got wise pretty quick. About 5 minutes after the fine was announced, they announced Lowry was playing last night, and then the entire team wore headbands. So I believe that was because of Isaiah. I think I heard Lauren Green say Isaiah Collier took out his braids last night, and then he needed to wear a headband, so the entire team decided to do that. I think a lot of people were wondering, Tony, if they were protesting, but I don't think that was the headband story, right?
No, it wasn't a protest. It was definitely Isaiah Collier thing. Isaiah wore the headband, and then one of the teammates wore a headband. I forget which one, and then everybody just decided to wear a headband. But it was fun watching Kyle Filipowski wear a headband because he's got perfect hair, and to see the hair kind of flying under the headband, as he was flying, through the lane for dunks, and stuff like that. That was kind of fun as well, and it was kind of fun watching Lowry wear a headband as well.
I'm trying to picture a young TJ running point back in the day. I'm thinking like maybe a Bonzi Wells type look. Were you a headband guy at all back in the day?
I never once in my entire basketball career wore a headband.
Yeah, neither did I. Is
I
that
was,
because
I
it
was
didn't look good or you didn't want to?
no, I was too pretty for that. I didn't need no headband.
Red Hot Lover Tone makes his reappearance on the drive on a Thursday. Gotta love that, man. Gotta love that. All right, TJ, I know that we have done this before, but let's revisit it because I think, Jazz fans clearly understand the deal. Even if they don't like it, they know what the deal is. So let's talk about some of these prospects that the Jazz are hoping to land, and we'll just start at the top. Now, Cooper Flagg left Duke's win today with a sprained ankle. John Shires said X-rays are negative. And I think since you and I last spoke, Tony, Cooper has really separated himself even more. And we'll get to Dylan and Ace and everybody else. But for Jazz fans, they keep hearing the name Cooper Flagg as they continue to tank to lose on purpose. What sort of player is he, and what would he mean to the Jazz if they can grab him?
Well, I will say this: he made a couple of real he's had a couple of real accomplishments this year. Um, you know, you could still be the number one player in the draft and not be the best college basketball player in the country. Cooper Flagg is the best college basketball player in the country by miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. He's had as good a freshman year as any kid that I've seen in the last 10 years. I think he's had a better freshman year than even Zion Williamson did back in 2018. Um, every so often a kid comes along and is playing college basketball, and you're looking at that kid and you watch him play, and you think to yourself, he's wasting his time playing college basketball. He's too good for this level, and Cooper Flagg is too good for this level. He's 6'9". He can guard throughout a lineup. His on-ball skills have improved exponentially over the season. Over the course of the season, he's figuring out ways to get a shot off. He's playing the spots. He affects a game on almost on almost every possession on both ends of the floor. I think that he's a guy that's going to be a perennial all-star in this league. I think you're going to get him into NBA spacing. And truthfully, I said this earlier in the college basketball season, and I was kind of flamed for it a little bit on Twitter. But I'll say it again, and I believe it now even more than I believed it when I said it in November. He reminds me a ton of Kawhi Leonard. That's who he reminds me of. He reminds me of a young Kawhi Leonard, and it'll be interesting to see what his journey is because I think that he's a guy that can be a very significant player at the NBA level.
All right, excuse me. Let's kind of go down the list a little bit. If the Jazz do not get the luck that we're all hoping they get and they snag number one, let's say they fall to two. It feels like most of the consensus is Dylan Harper. He's got a teammate for Rutgers named Ace Bailey, who we'll get to in a moment. But let's start with your thoughts for Jazz fans. If they don't get Cooper and they fall to number two, do you feel like it's Dylan Harper? And if so, what kind of player is he?
No, it would definitely be Dylan Harper if the Jazz fall to number two. Um, he's a guy that plays a little bit like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in terms of the pace that he plays at. He knows angles. He's a 6'5", 6'6" left-handed point guard. Scores at all three levels. Really understands the game. Um, from an IQ level at a high level. He's the son of Ron Harper. So we know how Jazz fans feel about those Bulls teams. So that would be fun. But he's, like I said, he's left-handed. He's a terrific pick and roll player. Plays the game at his own pace. Doesn't get sped up, which is really rare for a kid his age. And knows how to play the angles, and he knows how to play the spots. He's a guy that I also think can be a really significant player in this league. I don't think I think that Cooper Flagg is in his on his own island as a prospect in this draft, but I also think that Dylan Harper is also on his own island as the second best prospect of this draft.
So then we move over to Dylan's teammate, and it's just wild that Rutgers has two of the top three NBA players, and they've had a very subpar season. So recently, Dylan missed some time, was out for a few games, and so Ace Bailey, in one of the games Dylan was out, Ace put up 30. And the more and more you watch Ace Bailey, the more and more you like him. And he's all sorts of 6'10". He's every bit of 6'10". It feels like he's locked in at three, Tony. So if the Jazz remain where they are, they will be in the bottom three. Therefore, they'll have a 14% chance, like the other two teams, to grab the number one overall pick. So we've already talked one. Now we move to two. So let's move to three. If the Jazz fall to three, do you feel like Ace is the pick? And if so, what sort of prospect is he?
If the Jazz get the three pick, that pick will be what the Jazz will do is a lot more ambiguous than what they would do at number one and number two. I think that if they get number one, they're going to take Cooper. Number two, I'm 90% sure that they'll take Dylan Harper. If they get number three, I don't know who they're going to take because I think that the organization is a lot more torn on Ace Bailey than they are on the first two, and I would agree with the organization. I think that there are real positives and negatives towards taking Ace Bailey, and truthfully, I really like VJ Edgecombe, the kid from Baylor, as well. And, so I think that, it would be, kind of a photo finish to who would be the number three guy for me. Now, I'll say this with Ace Bailey, I look at the positives. The positives, I don't think there's a better shot maker in the draft in terms of, contested shots, taking contested shots, making contested shots. Obviously, like you said, he's every bit of 6'10". He's going to score at some point in his career. He's going to score 25 to 28 points a game over the course of an entire season. So we know that the kid can put the ball in the basket. Super athletic for his size. Can really get above the rim and play above the rim. And I think he tries. I think he tries defensively, and I think that's something that I like about him as well. The problem is, that 25 to 28 points per game that he's going to score at whatever point in his career, whether it be 2 seasons, 3 seasons, 4 seasons, it's going to come on 41% shooting from the field and it's going to come on about 30 to 32% shooting from 3-point range. He's never going to be an efficient kid because he takes a ton of difficult shots, and I mean a ton of difficult shots. And he takes a ton of bad shots. He takes a ton of shots from 18 to 20 feet to where he should just step back 2 or 3 feet and take a three, or he should figure out a way to get into the lane to where his athleticism can work for him. The problem is that he doesn't handle the ball very well for his size, and that's why when you see social media, you see comparisons to Michael Porter Jr. So people like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how he develops his game, whether he stays the same player as he is now, or whether he figures out a way to become a better player than he is now. His swing skill for me is going to be his ball handling. If he can figure out a way to get more dynamic off the dribble to where he can actually start beating people off the dribble, then his efficiency is going to be better for it. The other question for me is whether he's a small forward or whether he's a shooting guard, which is actually a good thing because, like you said, he's 6'10". So he's not a bashful kid. He's not a shy kid. And the other thing for me is he never passes the ball. Like he's Cam Whitmore like in the fact that he doesn't really pass the ball. So he's got real holes in his game, and he's got real positives and negatives to his game to where his talent level dictates that he should probably be the third best player in this draft. But there are enough holes in his games to where there's a serious question of that.
Excuse me, one more Jazz thing, Tone, then we'll move on to your thoughts now that Alex Jensen is officially the head coach of the Utes. Our friend Sarah Todd from the Deseret News stopped by the show yesterday, and she wrote a really good piece, but it was also pretty depressing for Jazz fans, where, paraphrasing here, she described the past 3 years as a tear down and essentially was implying that the rebuild is really beginning now, if not next year. And her assertion is, and I want to see if you agree, even if Lady Luck shines on the Jazz and they grab a Cooper Flag, next year most likely will feel and look a lot like this year did for Jazz fans. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, she's absolutely right. The Jazz thought, and we talked about this earlier in this conversation, a little bit indirectly. The Jazz were like, okay, we have this real collection of picks. Let's make some trades and let's get some significant guys in here. And they found out that they weren't able to do that because, there are a lot of politics being played behind the scenes. So, you had to trade Mike Conley, had to trade Malik Beasley, had to get a lot of the veterans off the roster. There's still a lot of veterans on the roster. John Collins is still on the roster. Jordan Clarkson is still on the roster. So there's still veterans on the roster. And this is the first year of the rebuild because the Jazz realized, all right, we're just going to have to do this through the draft. So this is year one. And, I don't even think it's depressing. I don't think it's a depressing thing. What they're doing right now is putting themselves in position to get the best player in the draft. And whatever happens with those lottery balls, whether they get Cooper Flag, VJ Edgecombe, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, whoever, Con Knueppel, whoever, Trey Johnson, whoever, they should 100% turn around and do the exact same thing next year. 100%. And that is because next year's draft class is one of the best draft classes at the top of a draft that I have ever seen. You have Darren Peterson, you have AJ DeBansa, and you have Cameron Boozer, and you have Kareem Lopez. you have four guys that project as franchise guys. In this draft, there's one guy, and that's Cooper Flag. There are four guys in next year's draft that projected as potential franchise guys. And I think that the Jazz should figure out a way to get whoever they can in this year's draft, and then figure out a way to get one of those four guys in next year's draft, and then go try to be good, because you'll have, two potentially really dynamic guys on the roster. The Jazz have figured out that the only way for them to get the guy onto the roster, like the guy, is to do it through the draft. And they have a golden opportunity to get two of those guys. So whatever happens with this year's draft, it's my belief that they should turn around and do the exact same thing next year and get one of those guys in the 26th draft. And then, whatever happens, go ahead, be good. Be good right away. Maybe, here's the thing. Maybe they get Cooper Flag. And if you have Cooper Flag and Walker Kessler and Lowry Markkinen, maybe you're good right away. My suspicion is you're probably not good right away, because I think that the roster really needs some guard play. And there's guard play that I don't think that's currently on the roster. But, you could do a lot worse as a front court at the NBA level than Cooper Flag, Walker Kessler, Lowry Markkinen, and I'm going to throw Kyle Filipowski in there too as well, because I think that he's a terrific talent. But if you're the Jazz, you should go and try to get one of those four guys in the 26th draft as well.
All right, moving over now to the news that you and I discussed a couple of weeks ago, and I've said it on the show a few times. You dropped Alex Jensen's name the day that Mark decided to move on from Craig Smith, and now it's reality. Alex Jensen, the 17th head coach in Utah men's basketball history. Tony, what's your reaction, and how do you think he's going to go about filling out that bench?
Yeah, I think that I think that the youth needed to, it's so cliche about winning the press conference, but in this sense, I really think that they needed to hire somebody that was going to win the press conference, and Alex Jensen is going to win the press conference. Now we'll see what happens after he wins the press conference, but he's certainly going to win the press conference. And the reason why I say this is because that program needs somebody at the top of it that has belief, real belief, within the fan base, real belief from the players, real belief from the administration, and real belief from the people who write the checks. And one of the biggest reasons why Craig Smith is no longer here, and I think that he is a terrific coach. And I still think he's a terrific coach. I thought he was terrific at Utah State. I think he's really good at the actual coaching part. But one of the reasons why he is no longer here is because he lost belief within the people who write the checks. And Alex is going to have that belief. It's my belief that, Alex is, one of the best player development guys that, I've seen. I saw him work wonders with Rudy Gobert. I saw him work wonders in Dallas with Derek Lively. He really knows how to develop the guys that he works with, whether they be bigs or whether or not. I know that he gets a lot of credit for developing bigs, but bigs aren't the only people that he's developed over his time as a coach. So, I think that he definitely has that going for him. What he has to do, in my eyes, to me, is figure out a way to gain a foothold on the local recruiting scene. I think the state of Utah, the class of 2026 is probably one of the best high school classes in the last 20 years to come out in this state, particularly among guards. So I think that he's got to get a foothold on the local guys, and we'll see how he fills out We'll see how he fills out his staff, and I believe that he's going to have a lot of NIL money to go after real dudes, and I think that he's going to go after real dudes because he's going to have the ammunition financially to be able to do so.
All right, Tone, last thing and I'll set you loose. BYU, a little bit fortunate today to run into Iowa State, who was without two of their three best players in Keyshawn Gilbert and the Tamian Lipsey kid, who's been all Big 12 twice. That was a high-level basketball game, and BYU's now won 9 straight. They've got wins over Arizona at McHale. They dump-trucked Kansas and Provo, and they beat Iowa State twice. This, to me, is the best BYU team that I've seen play since the Fredette stuff. And when you look at the roster top to bottom, I think this roster is more talented than any team Dave had when Jimmer was here. That's my opinion. What is their ceiling? As they continue to play like this, looks like they're going to run in Houston in the semis. I don't know that they can get past the 5 line, but they continue to play well. So your thoughts on what you think Brigham Young can do come tournament time?
So that 2011 team would have gone to the Final Four had Brandon Davies not been suspended, or what, was he suspended or was he ineligible?
He was encouraged to take some time off after a honor code violation was uncovered. Yeah. I think I'll leave it there.
Yeah, and I'm still kind of heated about that.
No, for sure, it's wild, but that's the deal down there.
I knew that kid really well from covering high schools, and Brandon Davis was one of the best guys. Well, he's not a kid anymore, but he was a terrific person. Anyway, I digress. That team would have gone to the Final Four, in my opinion, had Brandon been there. I would say that this is. I don't know if this is the most talented team at the top, because that 2011 team had Jimmer and Brandon. I mean, those are two, longtime pros. But this BYU team right now is certainly the deepest team that I've seen and the most balanced. And it's a two-way team, by the way. Like, it's, there are a lot of BYU teams, they put the ball in the basket, but they can't defend you or me. This team defends. This team is more athletic than they look. I'm sorry to be cliche. They're tough as hell. They're nasty. They have the bookend bigs inside with Troy and Keita, Dallin Hall. I've loved him since he was at Fremont as a player. He's one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite players in college basketball. I don't think he's one of the best players in college basketball, but I think he's one of my favorites. And quietly, Richie Saunders, to me, I think is playing himself into having a chance to play in the NBA in some capacity. So they have a lot of guys. I'm really impressed with the development of Trey Stewart into, a key guy, especially defensively. He had some big plays today. Trevor Nell. I mean, they just have guy after guy after guy. And, and I think it's good. I don't think that they're matchup proof in the NCAA tournament. So, I'd like to see what their draw is. But I do think that if they get the correct draw, they can go a long way in the tournament. I still have PTSD from, them going out in the first round last year. I do think that they're a lot better this time around than they were last year, and I don't think that they're going to go out in the first round. But, I'll say this. I think that they're one of the most dangerous teams in the country, and I would not be shocked if they beat Houston tomorrow.
Oof, predicting a win against Houston, that's tough, man. But they
when I said I wouldn't be shocked. I just said
yeah. No, look, man, they deserve all the credit in the world. They played really well. Tone, thanks for the time, brother. I've misbehaved with the clock, so I got to set you loose. But let's catch up soon, okay?
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
Tony Jones does a number of different things for The Athletic. When the Jazz are interesting, he covers the Jazz. Right now he's covering the Nuggets. Get him on Twitter at TJones on the NBA is where you find him. All right, we got a break. 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Josh Grant. If you missed it a couple weeks ago, you're going to want to stay tuned. Josh Grant joins us coming up next right here on ESPN 700. All right, we are out and about on location today with our good friends at Tim Dolly. It's their used car side of things. We've been at several different Tim Dolly locations. This one's new for us, though. It's 4545 South Main Street. Trust me, put that in your GPS and follow it. Don't try to get cute. You'll get lost like I did. 4545 South Main Street.
Into the hands of Britt and Johnson.
I was wondering if Britt, Britt. He's tongue in cheek, and obviously he was being a little bit facetious. But I was wondering if you heard Britt go at you a little bit. So the floor is yours, Josh. Go at him.
How can I not hear that guy? He's so loud. He sat and talked about how we're such good friends, man. The old adage is, with friends like that, who needs enemies? But no, he's a character. He's a funny guy, and we have been friends. He's been, busting my chops since I dated his sister when he was about 5, and I think he was a BYU fan at the time. But no, he's a good guy, a good friend. He just has no filter. Even his brother Jeff, as I was texting him, "What the heck is your brother saying about me?" And Jeff even said that he's a loose cannon and nobody can control him. So you just got to take it for what it is. He's a goofball. But I do have one thing I have to say about him. When he was talking about Alex being a coach on the floor and how he would grab Britt by the jersey and scream in his face, it's not totally because Alex is a coach. It's because Alex knew that Britton did not even listen to what Coach had just said in the timeout or in the whole week of preparation, and so he was trying to make sure he was at the right place at the right time. Britton has a little ADHD, I think. He can't really concentrate that well.
We got a little Ute legend on Ute legend crime here with Josh Grant and Britton Johnson. But nonetheless, Josh, your wish has been granted, and I will give you the credit because you were the first guest I had on the show who said this job should go to Alex. So now that it is official, I just want to know your reaction, and if you could share with us the reaction of people that kind of live in your cul-de-sac, in your community. How are people feeling about it?
I think that, first of all, I was so happy when I finally heard, okay, it's a done deal. There's always going to be some bumps in the road and some concerns and things like that. But once I heard that the contract's been signed, everything's good, I was ecstatic. I think that Alex is going to do such a good job. I think he's just such a good person, and that good, thoughtful person. He's going to be the same way as a coach. He's going to get the most out of his players. He's going to recruit intelligently, and he's going to build a culture here. And I firmly believe that all of those things that I've just mentioned are in a spreadsheet in his head, and each one has, each cell is filled with an idea of how he thinks it will work. He's just very thorough and just very thoughtful. And so I'm very pleased. And I think the whole community is. People that I've talked to, there's just an air in Salt Lake City and in Utah that people are just really excited for the first time. I haven't seen people this excited for a really long time. I mean, it's really been 20 years that people as a whole have just been really excited about what's going to happen and the potential of what is in the future.
Are you, excuse me, fighting a little sinus chest thing, Josh, so bear with me. Are you aware of how this process went down? Like, do you know if this was Mark's one and only target, or are you aware of whether or not Mark Harlan interviewed multiple candidates before landing on Alex?
I'm sure that Alex knew he was the number one guy, and we needed to see what it was going to take to get Alex to come. And so he may have had some backup just in case, but he was going full-hearted at Alex and wanted to make sure that Alex realized that he was the number one choice.
Any thoughts, or maybe whether or not Alex was immediately open to this, or was this a process? I mean, I know Dallas liked him. I know his wife really very much enjoyed living in Dallas, and I've been told that this wasn't, something that Alex jumped at right away, that it did take some time. But if you're aware, can you illuminate us kind of how this process went down, maybe the interest on Alex's side?
Yeah, I've been talking with Alex, for a number of years, and not like daily, but obviously each time the season starts getting worse, I'll text him or we'll run into each other, and I'll just say, are you ready to come yet? You ready to come yet? In this situation, I sense in his voice a little more enthusiasm and excitement.
that he was actually considering, like, you know what, that might be a really good option. And then, of course, once you start to settle down and think, okay, is my family going to be okay with this? Do we have good support? What's the NIL money like? What would our plan be? Who's going to be just the behemoth that he now has on his shoulders, trying to get everything figured out to kind of build the culture and the team and the structure and everything that he wants. And so I think his initial, and this is just my opinion, Alex didn't tell me this is my read on it, he was excited at the opportunity for sure. And then maybe the weight of all of the things made him step back a little bit and say, okay, before I commit to this, we need to make sure we have some clarity on a few things. And I think that maybe is what took a little bit longer.
Right now, because if you can't write checks, you're not getting talent. Not in this day and age, Josh.
Right. No, it's true. I don't know the inside on that necessarily. I just probably have heard the same thing that you've heard, that people are excited enough about having Alex as the head coach that at least they're coming to the table to have discussion. There may be some donors who have verbally committed to say, you know what, if Alex is here, we're going to give more money. I don't have a sure known fact, but I also have a belief that this is something that you have to build. I don't think somebody's showing up with $10 million to say, hey, Alex, here you go and do with this $10 million what you want. I think it might be a situation where Alex has to kind of prove that he's utilizing the funds effectively and that he's putting together a good team with good people. And I know that Britain has some crazy ideas about how it's completely NIL money, and I know a lot of people think that. And this was one of my issues when I would hear you say things about former coaches here that were good coaches. If you can't coach players that don't demand high NIL money, how are you expected to coach players that do demand high NIL money? And so I think that Alex is a good coach. He's going to be a coach. And I think that he's going to recruit the proper people. And it's a little bit about the personality. If you look back at Utah basketball history, and that's kind of how I always gauge a lot of things that I say, is what has happened in history. And you look back at Andre, and you look back at Keith and Doliak. You look back at Byron Wilson in my era. They were good people. They were raised right. They realized the importance of loyalty. They wanted to be coached. They appreciated people who appreciated them. And so, yes, you're going to have to pay those guys NIL money. But you've got to find those good kids first. Don't just throw your money, willy-nilly to just go get somebody. Kind of live by the sword, you die by the sword. And if you're going to just chase after kids who are demanding this high NIL money, is that really the culture that you want to build here at Utah? And so, yes, he's going to have more money from what I understand, but I still think that it's just people are just barely starting to wake up again to the basketball program. They've been asleep for a little while because the program just hasn't been so stellar, but I think that at least their eyes are open and they're very interested to see what's going to happen next.
I'm sorry, did you say that you had taken issue with me saying that coaches here in the past had been good coaches? No, I'm genuinely curious.
Yes, you're too nice.
Okay.
And now, I hope Craig's not listening. Craig was a nice guy, but nobody said anything about Larry being a nice guy. The attitude of that was Larry didn't coach. And so it's a little bit of an unfair comparison when are we gauging people by their niceness or are we gauging people by their coaching ability? And so you can see, obviously, that, we had some disparity in how our guys, were they prepared well enough when they came out on the floor that they had confidence in knowing what they were doing. And to me, I didn't see that. And you could say that by, Gabe Madsen is a great shooter. Why was Gabe not able to shoot the ball well? Well, they didn't really execute in offensive sets. Did he have his feet set? Did he come off a screen? Did he set the screen up properly? Was the screen set properly? There's just a lot of those things that, Rick taught me to value and to notice. And so that's why I say, there's a big piece of this whole pie that includes good, solid teaching and expectations, and people have to be responsible for things that have been taught them. And that's, I think, what's been missing the most the last 20 years.
Well, Josh, I'll tell you this. I have to say thank you because I've been doing this nearly 20 years, and that's the first time anybody has told me that I am too nice, Josh. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're always very kind. Always. Maybe to a
Okay.
fault.
Okay, all right. You know what? I'll take that feedback. I'll take that criticism, and I'll try to be better with it. So let's talk about now, Josh, how you would like to see this staff filled out. I've heard that they're talking to Andre. I'm sure you have inside knowledge that most of us do not, but that's only one seat. So let's get your thoughts on whether or not you think Andre's high speed had to come home, and maybe some other thoughts on who you'd like to see sitting next to Alex.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Andre wants to come. I'm pretty sure of that. He may be just trying to get the final parts and pieces together so that he'll be comfortable. But I hear it's very close. I don't know if the deal's been signed, but I hear it's close. And Andre will bring such an amazing presence from a recruiting standpoint. I mean, who wouldn't? If Andre Miller showed up at your front door and you live in L.A., who's not thinking, holy cow, Andre Miller is standing on my doorstep right now, and he could actually teach me how to get to the NBA. And so I think from a recruiting standpoint, it's amazing. Just from his feel for the game is amazing. You hear a lot of these pros on these YouTube channels and podcasts talk about how Andre Miller was such a great mentor to them, and he would ask questions just simple like, well, what do you see here? And he wouldn't just tell people stuff. He would make them think and learn and figure things out for themselves. So I think that would be an amazing partnership with he and Al. After that, I don't even know. Back in the old days, I think you had 3 coaches and you had 1 graduate assistant. Nobody else could be on the floor. Nowadays, I think I counted 8-10 coaches on the bench.
Yeah.
The other day. So I think you just have to be the number one hire, or not the number one hire. Somebody that's really important is getting somebody who can act as your general manager. You've got to be able to keep track of NIL and make sure that values are maintained and how much money do you have and how do we kind of put the players together, which is kind of new for college basketball. It's more of an NBA thing, but I think Alex has got to get somebody in that position that would be helpful to him and just kind of keep an eye out on him and make sure that he doesn't hit any big potholes, as he's kind of figuring all this stuff out. So you've got to get a good general manager who understands kind of everything. And then you've got to get somebody who can recruit the state of Utah. Britton, again, I can't help it. I got to get back at him. It's just locker room banter, right?
Love it.
Britton sat and talked about how I was wrong that, you can't build a team with Utah players and so on, and maybe you can win the WAC and the Mountain, but you can't win the Big 12. And I don't disagree with him, and I never said that. I said you have to build a core group of players who are from Utah. So I asked, I was talking to my friend Ryan Boyack about this, and we looked back at the championship team. Do you know how many guys were on that team from Utah? Take a guess.
3, 4?
There were 6.
6, okay.
So you've got the 2 Johnsons, you've got Al, you've got Hanson, and then you've got the backup center, and then there was another kid who I can't remember his name. He didn't play a whole lot. I think he ended up redshirting because he hurt himself. But 6 players. So you've got to be able to start to build that win of recruiting the best players in Utah. So you've got to have somebody who understands and has relationships or can build relationships with the local kids. And then after that, I think you've got to get people who can build player or do player development and who can fix people's shots and work on some of the basics and things like that. Do I have names for you? No, I don't. And if they ask Britton Johnson to come be a coach, don't let him trick you. He would drop everything he's doing to come and be a coach. He's trying to be Mr. Coy, but yeah, and who wouldn't? I mean, it's an opportunity of a lifetime, really, to come in and to be able to work here at an alma mater that you love, that you have passion for, and I think that goes a long way. And that's another thing I think has been missing is this passion for the University of Utah, and that's another box that Alex checks. He loves the University of Utah. He has great feelings of his experiences here. So he's gonna work a little bit harder and maybe have a few more sleepless nights if things don't go well, which I'm not saying they will, but it'll still be a challenge for him. He'll be a little more concerned maybe and put a little more into it. So, I'm excited as everybody else is just to see who is going to come and sit around and who's going to have input and who will have Alex is here. Who will be Alex's Jeff Judkins, like he was to Rick Majerus, and it's fun. It's just exciting. It really is. This is such a good time.
Now, at the next Utah basketball great reunion, are you and Britt going to be good? Are we going to see some fisticuffs? Are you guys going to be all right the next time you're together?
First of all, both of us are so skinny. We probably couldn't hurt each other if we actually did throw a blow. But no, that's just Britton. We've known Britton a long time. I'm not going to hit him. He's not going to hit me. We'll probably just start laughing.
Okay.
But no, we're good. We're good.
Okay, and I would be remiss, Josh, if I didn't ask you. I would imagine if Alex is interested, you'd be interested potentially in talking to him about sitting on that bench, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, it's an opportunity of a lifetime. And as I've watched this whole thing go through, I've asked myself, is this something that I would like to do? And, sometimes people say, well, you haven't been coaching. And I think back and I talked to Jeff Judkins because he had a similar situation where he didn't coach for a while. I mean, he was just working as an average Joe when Rick Majerus brought him back. And so I think that, there was a time when I had to decide, did I want to turn left and go into coaching? Do I turn right and try to get into, Workforce America? And just because I decided to go right into Workforce America, the information and the knowledge that I had learned over my, 15-year career or 17-year career, it didn't just disappear. So it's always been in there. And I think it would be a lot of fun to just be able to help in some way. Whatever that means, I don't know. But I think that, I do have some things to offer for in-state kids. I could go and tell them how awesome it is to be a hometown boy, because that played such a big part of my life, just kind of being here, being an East High graduate. So, if it's obviously it's up to Alex, but if there's anything I could do to help, I'd be more than happy to jump in there and do it.
At the risk of being too nice, you're Josh freaking Grant. You didn't need to carry a clipboard around for 20 years to be able to be qualified, Josh. But let me move over here before I set you loose, because you referenced, and we had Tim McMahon on the show who covers the Mavs for ESPN, and Tim reported that Alex would finish off the season with the Mavs, but Mavs ownership has given him complete carte blanche to go start doing what he's doing to lay the groundwork for his new job. And I'm just going to read off the names of the players that are eligible to come back next year. Then I want to get your thoughts, and we'll say you lose. So Ezra Sarr is a junior. And Kiana Dawes, Coach Eilert played Kiana more minutes than Craig did, and Kiana had 3 double-doubles in the 5 games Coach Eilert coached. So we've got Ezra, we got Kiana Dawes, we got Miro Little. We also have Jake Wallin and Mike Shravjamps are the main candidates to come back, at least on paper. So what do you make of that list of names, and who do you think Alex should look at to try to get back next year?
I love all those guys you mentioned. I honestly think that, this is a difference of opinion between me and Coach Smith, but I think that you take either one of those point guards and then you add the other 3, and then if you have somebody like Caleb Lohner was such a beast on defense. I think if you started those 5 guys just to kind of set the tone defensively, they really will get after it, and they would set a good tone defensively. And so I think you win some games if you just give them the opportunity to just go and get after it. So I do. I'm a fan of Wallin. I'm a fan of Dawes. I'm a fan of Ezra. I think Miro's in there, and he can get in there and compete. He's very athletic. And Mike, for his lack of athletic ability, is so long. I think that makes up for a lot of things. So I really believe that Alex should go and try to keep all of them, because they do kind of understand. They played with each other a year. Dawes is starting to show what he's capable of if you just kind of let him play through and gain some confidence. Wallin is the same thing. He needs to get some work with his shot and being able to maybe have some other options to score. I think Mike just needs to get his feet set a little bit better when he shoots his jump shot. And Miro, he's just an athletic kid. Maybe give him a little bit more direction, but make defense a priority for him. And I think with those guys right there, sure, you need a big center or something, but with those guys right there, you have a pretty solid team, and now you just need to build, some good subs.
Well, Josh, I appreciate the time, and I didn't mean to cause problems between you and my guy Britt, so hopefully we're going to be okay. Bottom line is, no matter where you're at in the ecosystem, somebody like you who's a legend or somebody like me who covers the program, I think this has been a really exciting week, and I'm pumped to see what's next, my friend, so thank you so much for the time.
Hey, thank you. I really appreciate it. And, yeah, Britt and I, we're still buddies, so no worries.
All right, there we go. The great Josh Gratt, one of the best to ever do it at the University of Utah. Porter, before we catch a break, did you hear what Josh Grant said about me?
I did. Too nice.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what?
I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna put it on our marquee.
You've been wrong about me this whole time, and a good portion of this community has been wrong about me the whole time. I am simply too nice. I am simply a guy that goes about spreading love and kindness and joy wherever I go, and all I get is pushback from people. So Josh Grant laid down the law. I am too nice.
Yeah, I'm glad he's sticking up for you. I'm gonna put that on our website.
I'm going to change my Twitter bio. Spence Checketts, too nice. All right. We will catch a break. We're live today with our friends at Tim Dolly. We've been out at their location a couple of different times, but this is our first time at the Dolly Used Auto Mart. So it's 4545 South Main Street. We have Sportsman Expo passes. You can just come on and grab them and go to the Sportsman Expo for free. And then there's a new piece of legislation where you have an opportunity to save up to $4,000 on some new EV vehicles, namely Teslas and BMWs and Audis. So come on out, and they'll tell you if you are eligible for that savings. Come on by and say hi. We'd love to meet you, giving away free high fives because I apparently am too nice, according to Josh Grant. We're going to change gears. We'll get back to the basketball stuff, but the Utah Hockey Club with a good win last night. They're going to be in Seattle coming up tomorrow. So Neil Smith makes his weekly visit coming up on the other side right here on ESPN 700. All right, excuse me. We are out and about today trying to help you guys save some money on a new vehicle with our good friends at Tim Daly. It's the Daly Used Auto Mart in Murray. It's 4545 South Main Street. Trust me, put that in your GPS and follow it. Don't overthink it. You'll get lost out here like I did. 4545 South Main Street here in Murray, where you can save up to $4,000, and we'll tell you how on one of these new and used EV vehicles. We've got Dave McMenamin stopping by coming up in a bit. We'll get back to the madness of March, but the Utah Hockey Club continues to stay in the fight. It's going to be tough when you look at the numbers to make that wild card spot, but it's not over yet. And our next guest joins us on a weekly basis to inform us, enlighten us, illuminate us in the world of professional hockey. He's the great Neil Smith on a Thursday. Neil, happy Thursday, sir. How are you?
Thank you, and make me sound a lot brighter than I am, that's for sure. But I like that commercial you just had with the Irish voice going down. It was an Irishman or something. Anyways, I thought I should let you know that I like that.
There you go.
Spence, I got to start off with a little tribute. Your father and I got some very bad news this week. I don't know if he was able to tell you, but the passing of Stanley Jaffe, who was so instrumental in us with the Knicks' success and the Rangers' success back in the 90s, and just a wonderful guy, and he passed away at 84.
Yeah, that's right. We did have a little family thread going on with that, and I wonder if you would corroborate my father's thoughts that in my dad's time at the Garden, he said Stanley Jaffe was his favorite boss during his entire time. Would you corroborate that?
Yeah, I would. I think that if it weren't for him, we wouldn't have won the Stanley Cup, and probably the Knicks wouldn't have gone to Game 7 against Houston that same year. He was very much behind the teams and very much allowed Dave and I to do what we had to do to make the teams great. And, it was his support was vital during an era when they kept changing ownership at the Garden, and you had to get somebody that was supportive, and he certainly was.
Yeah, it was a shame when the final ownership change took place, and that dude is still in charge. But that's a different topic for a different day, Neil. We will leave that there. So let me just ask you right off the top here. It's still really tight. Minnesota's pulled away a little bit. Calgary, Vancouver on 71. Utah Hockey Club with a win last night is on 69 points along with the Blues. But as we roll down the stretch, is it still realistic to believe that this could actually happen, that the Utah Hockey Club could qualify as a wild card team in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs?
Yeah, they're very much still. They're not the favorites to get into those wild card spots, because I think that's more Vancouver and Calgary. But they do have a chance, and we were just talking about it today. And if you can say that to get to the 92 points or whatever it's going to take to make the playoffs, you've got to play at a 700 average or a 600 average or something. But if a team can get on a winning streak, either the Blues or the Hockey Club could get on a winning streak, they can jump over teams. But it's going to take a winning streak. You're not going to be able to win one, lose one, win one, lose one. That won't work. And when you play teams, and I said this last week when you weren't on, you've got to get the 2 points and don't leave any on the table for the other team. In other words, you don't win in overtime, you don't win in a shootout. Try to win in regulation. And, of course, if that's not possible, then go ahead and win in the other ones. But it's important that you get the points and that you don't leave any for other teams.
So let me ask you, if you just had to guess, again, Minnesota seems to have separated themselves for the first wild card spot. But the second wild card spot, Calgary, Vancouver, St. Louis, and Utah are all in the mix for that second wild card. So who would you kind of handicap as the favorite as of now, Neil?
I would handicap Vancouver as a favorite. That's
Vancouver.
That's what most sites are saying, that Vancouver is the one that's the favorite to get in, and that goes by strength of schedule the rest of the way. Teams that they've got to play, how many home games they have, how many road games, how many teams above 500 that they have left to play, how many below 500, and on that strength of schedule and on the team, that's who people are giving the edge to. But as I said, that all goes out the window if somebody goes on a winning streak. Even though you're only 2 points apart, it'll take a winning streak and beating teams that people have handicapped you not to beat, to give you a chance to get in. And crazier things have happened, that's for sure.
So what sort of experience? Because we're doing this a lot with the Jazz here, our local NBA team, as they play a lot of these really good teams in very close games. It's giving these young players a lot of good experience because they're not going to make the playoffs, and the only way for these young players to understand what it's like to play against really, really good players and really good teams in pro basketball and not get their doors blown off is be able to make these games competitive. And even if they fall short, they're getting some good experience because they're playing teams closely. What sort of experience can a young team like the Utah Hockey Club just be able to garner being in the fight that Coach Torney talks about all the time, being in the race, even if they don't get in and if they fall short? What sort of experience can be gained in a race like this, Neil?
I think just what you just said is the experience of being in a situation finally where they are going right down to the wire to try to get in, and they're not eliminated in February. If you look at the team last year, the same team, which was based in Arizona, they weren't in the fight right till the very end. And I think that's what the coach is talking about, is that stay in the fight, keep fighting. If they're going to beat us and go in, and we're not going to make it, let's not make it on the last weekend, not on the lot of months ahead of the end of the season, if you know what I mean. Keep fighting right till the very end. And I got to say, Spence, since we've been talking, in the summer, this is what I envisioned for this team, that they would be in and around knocking on the door to try to get into the wild card spot, and they still are doing it, and they can get in.
Are you surprised at all, Neil, that the NHL trade deadline came and went without the hockey club being very active? Does that surprise you at all, or did you anticipate Bill Armstrong just staying the course regardless of where they're at?
I anticipated that he would trade a couple of UFAs, but he re-signed guys that were UFAs, so that sort of took them off the market. And Buffalo did the same thing. And I'm not comparing Buffalo and Utah, but Buffalo, a non-playoff team, they ended up signing guys so that they didn't walk away for nothing. And that's the thing at this time of year, is the GMs don't want to lose a guy for nothing, so they come to the deadline and they say, look, we either sign him or we trade him, but we're not just going to have him hang in for the rest of the regular season and then walk away and go somewhere else. We've got to get something for these guys. So Bill Armstrong signed a couple of guys, and that took them off the market, basically.
Excuse me, a story broke this week that Connor Ingram is stepping away from the team to take care of his mental health. And he's entering what's called a player assistant program. This happened on Sunday. He lost his mother to breast cancer in December, which I think was news to a lot of people. And, not like this is the most important thing, but Connor, he was struggling. And now we kind of know why. Now there's some context and color to this entire thing. So tell us about this program, Neil. Tell us about this player assistant program. Most people, when they see news like this, believe, and Connor even talked about this, most people believe it was some sort of substance abuse issue when a program like this is announced, but it's not. He's just taking time off to take care of his mental health. So tell us about this program and your thoughts on the news that broke about Connor Ingram.
Well, I didn't know about his mother, and that's really sad. That's horribly sad, especially for a kid it's not. I'm sure his mother wasn't really very old and too early to go, and so that would put anybody into a depression. And you don't want to guess at these things and say, he's fighting depression. You don't want to say it's any substance or alcohol or anything else, because you don't know. But I would imagine that his mental state hasn't been right to play goal in the National Hockey League when he's been hit with his grief that he's had to encounter this year. And he probably just wants to try to take care of that with some counseling and some therapy. And good on him to actually say, look, I need to do this. I'm not as good an athlete or a person, a husband, a father, or whatever, until I take care of this mental health issue.
I wonder, just while we're in this space, because I've never talked to you about this before. I am a Gen Xer in my, I'll say, mid-40s. I can say that for another 5 days. And, Neil, when I was growing up, we weren't really encouraged to talk openly about mental health issues. And I was raised by very loving parents, my mother and father. I'm not complaining about anything as far as how I was raised, but it was never really. And I played sports up until, I was in college before I needed to find something else to do with my time because being a 5'11" white kid trying to guard Andre Miller was not fun. And it was never a thing a coach brought up. I had some really intense, quite frankly, mean coaches as I came up, and none of them ever really asked us how we were doing. It was just kind of the deal. And you ran hockey teams in the NHL in the 90s very successfully, winning a Stanley Cup. Were points of emphasis like this even part of the fabric of your job back in the 90s? And what do you make of kind of how this stuff has changed a little bit?
Well, the whole society has changed for the better and become more open about and recognizing that mental health is health. It's not made up. It's just the same as any kind of other disease. If you have a mental health issue, you have a type of disease that has to be fixed. And so I think in our day in the 90s, we had a psychotherapist. I'm not sure if he was clinically certified or not, but we had a person that talked to the players from time to time to see how they were doing and was around the team a lot. So, but it wasn't to the extent it is now where I'm sure that the player can go and say, look, I'm struggling because of this or this, and I need some help, and that team would accommodate that, just as an employer would accommodate, hopefully, if one of their employees came to them and said, I'm really struggling at my job because I've got XYZ going on.
I wonder, one more question here. It feels like once upon a time there may have been a fear for a player to say, yes, I need a break because he could lose his job. I wonder if that's anything that you ever saw, whether it was mental health or just injuries, players like, no, I can't take a break. I have a family. I need this job. I don't want some young upstart taking my gig.
Yeah, well, I got to get another contract. I'm trying to play for another contract. I'll play hurt. I'll play in grief. I mean, in the old days of let's say when players played in the 60s and the 70s, I mean, they didn't even go home when their wife was giving childbirth. They had to stay on the road with the team. Now it's a common thing that players leave when they're going to have the birth of a child. So it's very much that players will play through things, but with concussions and so on, the leagues have all become more ultra conscious of head injuries, which lead to mental issues. So, because if you get a concussion, you're going to have various mental issues during the time that it's healing, and clubs have become more aware of this.
So what this does do, and again, I don't want to diminish, Connor's bravery, and we all wish him well and hope he's back soon. But now there's no debate about who the first choice goalie is. It is Vejmelka, who statistically has had a better year than Connor, and we've talked about it all year long. So what sort of dynamic does that bring? Is it just, again, good wishes to Connor, but knowing that Vejmelka's the guy now, is that something that could maybe free him up when he knows the job is his no matter what?
Oh, I think so. I think he'll play better. The normal NHL team has a set number one and a set backup, and they certainly have that now with Jackson Stauber being the backup and Vejmelka being clearly number one. And Vejmelka was rewarded with a new contract too by Bill Armstrong, so he showed him that he is definitely number one. And that's another player they took off the UFA market by giving him a new contract. So he's had a good year. Connor's struggled this year, as we all know, but now maybe we know one of the reasons why he's struggled, and that's with his personal situation.
All right, Neil, a kind of a broad picture, big picture, broader question about the league right now. Because I haven't talked to you since that March 7th trade deadline, which was last week.
Yeah.
Of all the moves that were made, and there were a ton, which one did you like the most? Which one left you scratching your head?
Well, the one that made me scratch my head, and probably every other part of me, was the Carolina trading for Rantanen and then not knowing whether they could sign him, and then not being able to sign him, and then turning around and trading him to Dallas. And it ended up that they lost Jack Drury and Marty Neckish to Colorado and got back Taylor Hall and a bunch of picks. So that made me really wonder, like, what are you doing? You're supposed to know you can sign these guys before you trade for them. That's common operations to do it that way. The other one that I was startled by was I didn't think that Boston would ever trade their captain, Brad Marchand, and when they couldn't come to a deal with him, they ended up trading him to Florida, which has been Boston's nemesis the last few years. And Brad Marchand now plays with two guys that terrorized each other in Sam Bennett and Matt Tkachuk on Florida, will now play with Brad Marchand on the same team. So you're going to have three very irritating guys now on the Florida Panthers. They had two, but now you're going to have the third one, and Marchand does a good job of that as well.
So, after the deadline, Vegas believes Florida and Dallas are the top Stanley Cup contenders now. Do you agree with that?
I think Florida is the top contender. I'm not sure that Dallas is because they got Rantanen. I think they're really good. I would say Winnipeg is the team that I would put my 2 cents on because they've done it all year long. I'm not sure when you go out at the trade deadline and you get a big fish, that the big fish can get into the school and swim with the other fish right away, because it's a big change in the dynamic of the team when you put a guy in the lineup that takes that much ice time.
All right, my friend, where can all of our listeners go get that good podcast of yours?
Any podcast platform and YouTube and anywhere, and give us a listen. We had Paul Maurice on this week. That was really funny. Actually, he was on the day of the deadline. You got to hear this story, Spence, because it's a great one. So we're talking to Paul Maurice, the coach of the Florida Panthers. And we said to him, "Are you sure you want to do it today because it's a trade deadline?" No, it's fine. We get into the interview, and we're about half an hour in, and he says, "Guys, I'll be right back. I just got to go for a few minutes here. You know what today is." And we sure, go. He goes away for 5 or 10 minutes, comes back, finishes up. He went away to get informed that they were trading for Brad Marchand. So that was really fun. But that's a good interview. Listen to that one on NHL Wrap.
Oh, man, that is wild. Neil, I appreciate your time, my friend. Have a great week, and we will chat with you next week.
Yeah, all my best, Spence. Thank you.
All right. The great Neil Smith, general manager of the New York Rangers in the 90s, joins us on a weekly basis to help us understand the landscape of pro hockey now that we are a hockey town with the Utah Hockey Club back in action tomorrow taking on Seattle. All right, before we catch a break, we have a awesome new client on the show. It's Ogden Clinic, Hadley Dermatology, and they've got a menu of great deals for you as listeners that you got to take advantage of because you're going to save a grip of money and you're going to have peace of mind knowing that you've been checked on. But let's bring in Kirk Stevens, one of their PAs today on a Thursday. Kirk, happy Thursday, buddy. How are we doing?
I'm doing well, Spence. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate the time. So today we are going to talk about adult acne, which is terrifying, the causes and the treatments. Kirk, so go ahead.
Yeah, so, unfortunately, adult acne is something that, for many patients they deal with, and don't outgrow it as from their teenage years. And so that can be really frustrating. One thing that we see with a lot of patients is, once they start hormonal replacement therapy, so like testosterone injections, they start to see acne on their trunk and face, and so they have this conundrum where they're starting to feel better, more energy, but then feel like they're regressing to their teenage years and dealing with acne. So one thing that I like to do is bring patients in, and help them with that problem. And the nice thing is we can kind of have our cake and eat it too. We can often keep patients on their hormone replacement therapies while also, getting their acne clear with various washes and, topical medications and pills. So that's a fun thing to help patients through.
Let's talk about what the right products are to use on your face and educate us on how to wash our face so we can just avoid this acne.
Yeah, so you know, oftentimes, especially males, we maybe just use the bar soap and continue it from the body onto the face, and just for ease of use. And a lot of these products that we use just can strip oil out of the skin and really compromise our skin barrier. So if we can just use products that are kind of more geared towards helping, maintain those healthy oils in the skin and helping with that skin barrier, that will go a long way of, either not making your acne worse or helping it initially. So, that's something that we like to help educate patients on what products to use. And, a lot of these things aren't very expensive, and we can help, guide through the myriad of options.
Last thing, Kirk, when should a parent involve a dermatologist when their kid has serious acne issues?
Yeah, so this is something I'm really passionate about. Really, it's never too early. We all know that junior high and high school is not an easy period of life, and acne only compounds that problem. And so I just tell parents, it's never too soon. Even if it's mild acne, we can help guide them through the many different options that are available over the counter. And then oftentimes we can get patients on, various topicals or prescription medications that can really help clear them up and just help them feel confident in their skin. I mean, that's such a huge thing as a teenager, and I'm really passionate about trying to help patients, particularly teenagers, regain that confidence.
Good stuff, Kirk. I appreciate your time, my friend. Have a great weekend, okay?
Yeah, thanks so much, Spence.
All right, here's the deal. So, Ogden Clinic Hadley Dermatology has put the following things on the table for deals for my listeners. The number one deal I'll point out is simply a free skin consultation. Okay, here's why you do that. If you're like me, once this weather actually shifts for good and the sun is shining every day, you're going to be golfing on the weekends. You're going to be hiking with your dog. You're going to be outside riding your mountain bike. You're going to be in the sun a lot. And what we've learned as a result of our relationship with Ogden Clinic Hadley Dermatology is we are the number one state in the country in skin cancer diagnosis per capita, okay? So the free skin consultation they're offering you at Ogden Clinic Hadley Dermatology, right out of the gate, you save a ton of money. But if you've not had a comprehensive checkup, like I know Jason and Michael really well, they're friends of mine, and every year they essentially force me to go up to Ogden Clinic Hadley Dermatology because they know how much golf I play, know how much hiking I do. And they know that I'm basically in the sun all summer long. So I do it every year just so I have peace of mind, because early detection can either save your life entirely or save you from having some hole dug out on the side of your head because you didn't get this checked out. That's number one, okay? So the skin consultation just for free is an amazing offer. Number two, 20% off of Botox for your significant other, your wife, your partner. Number three, 25% off of laser treatments because pool season is right around the corner. Don't be the dude at the pool that takes his shirt off and looks like a gorilla. Take advantage of that. And finally, as Kurt just outlined, whether you're an adult with acne issues or you have a teenager that's suffering from acne issues, great deal on that treatment as well. They can take care of you. So if any of those four menu items are fitting what you're looking for, take advantage of these deals because they're not going to last forever. Here's how you do it. Pick up your phone and dial 801-657-5664. That's 801-657-5664, 801-657-5664, or online at hadleydermatology.com. It's their good friends at Ogden Clinic Hadley Dermatology. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Live from Tim Daly right here at 4545 South Main Street. Come on by and say hello. We roll on next right here on ESPN 700. All right. Excuse me. We are live today with our good friends at Tim Daly. We've been at several Tim Daly locations, but this is a first for us out here at their used auto mart. Okay, so it's Tim Daly Used Auto Mart in Murray. It's 4545 South Main Street. We have free Sportsman's Expo passes, and you also can find out if you qualify to save up to $4,000 on a used vehicle. So come on out and say hello. We'd love to meet you at 4545 South Main Street in Murray. All right, if you missed Josh Grant from earlier, we may have started something, Porter. I didn't intend to do this, but I fear that at the next Utah men's basketball reunion, whenever that is, both Josh Grant and Britton Johnson are like 6'10". I'm afraid that we might have some fisticuffs. Josh was not in the mood to play today, for sure.
Yeah, well, if we have, and we've got two near 7-footers that that maybe have a few disagreements, I think that for the most part they are similar fellas, and that's why it seems that way. But in reality, I think it's mostly kind jabbing. But in the spirit of the new era of college football, maybe we could get a little boxing match going, raise some NIL funds.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Josh Grant dropped the whole, Britton has known me since I dated his sister and when he was 5. I mean, Josh came out with some fire. So in fairness, I do too. It's great. In fairness, and also because I am 5 minutes from losing my voice, if you missed the reason Josh Grant was upset today, on Monday, Britton Johnson stopped by, and here's what he had to say.
Well, when I first heard it, I texted him. I said, Al, are we coming or not? And he responded back in his very Alex fashion. It was myself and Jeff. We were on a thread together. He responded back, man, I absolutely love Dallas, and this is just such a nice job. So not giving me anything, right? And also just saying, I know that's going to be a huge responsibility to try and get the youth back to where they were supposed to be. So I'm in my mind thinking, okay, he's playing coy. But the fact that he responded to my text about the topic was encouraging. So Jeff and I are both like, I think there's going to be hope. Alex plays his cards really close. He's not like me, Spence. He doesn't throw up all over himself and tell everybody every aspect of their life. That's probably, like Lindsay said, less is more. That's probably a good thing that he does, not just flinging random things out there. But when I heard he actually took the job, Spence, nothing but excitement, nothing but I would just say anticipation in regard to this program going the right track. Is he going to come in and absolutely turn it around overnight? No, but he is going to be the best option that they could have gotten, for sure. I mean, I don't know who else I would choose other than him.
So let's dig into a couple things here. First, I want to get your thoughts on Craig, as Craig has been given the door and relieved of his duties after just, almost 5 years, just under 4 years, 6 years on his deal. So Craig walks away with a little change. He's got a $5 million parachute. So, of course, he does not have to take a job at Maverick anytime soon. He'll be fine for a minute. Why do you think this ultimately with Craig did not work? Now, I know you're down south. So did you have a chance to hear Josh Grant on my show by chance?
Yes.
Okay.
Several people sent that to me.
Okay, so give me your thoughts on that, Britt.
Oh, Josh is a babbling idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. No, I'm just kidding. I assume he's listening. Josh is a good friend. No, there was definitely some key spots to what he was talking about with Craig, and Josh has a great pulse on the program. By the way, Josh dated my oldest sister, Spence. So he came to our house, picked her up. We all thought he was the greatest thing in the world because he was the superstar in Utah. So Josh and his brothers, we all go way back.
Good.
Listen, Craig had this is what's hard. He has that awesome season at Utah State, but he also had, one of the best shot blockers in the country. He had Sam Merrill, I think, for a minute. Was Craig a great coach? He was a fine coach. He was a good man, someone I would have my son play for. Worked hard, but you got to have players. And I think just at the end of the day, you got to get the right players. And I remember hearing Josh talked a lot about getting the best players in Utah, and kind of that recipe like what we had in his era and my era. Well, I agree with that to a degree. Like, look, that's going to win you WAC championships and Mountain West championships. That's not winning you a Big 12 championship. Alex Jensen's got to go out and get players. And we all know to get players in today's world is not about selling the coach and the opportunity of Salt Lake City. It's freaking ching money. Let's go. You got to get some money. You got to get some NIL donors in there. You freaking think the number one player in the country is going to just go down and plop into Provo? No. You got to get money. Now, we got to get a couple big-time players, one or two, kind of like we did with Andre Miller, Mike Doliak, and then you fill in some in-state guys, the Britton Johnsons, Jeff Johnsons, the Josh Grants, the Alex Jensens, and then you have a coach that's got a brilliant mind like Majerus did. Alex Jensen's that coach, and now we're talking. Now we're rocking and rolling. But think about it. To get an Andre Miller or a Mike Doliak, or to keep those two guys, like say, they made their names here, right? And then you keep them for year 2, year 3. In today's world, yeah, you're going to have to pay up. Otherwise, Andre would have transferred to Texas and Mike would have transferred to Oregon, and they both would have made $1 million. So let's just not kid ourselves. The name of the game is someone's going to have to donate some money, or there's going to have to be a big pay where you get 1 or 2 players, and then Alex will get some good Utah guys, and then he'll take care of the rest with his brilliant coaching and his preparation and his X's and O's and his ability to find guys around him to go out and recruit the right people, like Majerus got Juddy and Donnie to get the players. So it's kind of my mind. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, Josh kind of said that, but other than I think Josh mentioned that he would rely heavily on getting the in-state guys, and I think they're going to be our second-tier guys we need to get.
So a couple things. First of all, when it comes to, and I was paraphrasing you the past couple of weeks because I can remember oftentimes you sharing stories about Coach Majerus ripping into this player or that player or you, quite frankly, but never really did with Alex. Am I remembering that correctly? And then attendant to that, tell us anecdotally some of the things that Rick used to share about Alex Jensen. He's on the record saying that Alex was one of the smartest players he ever coached, but I seem to remember oftentimes, Britt, you sharing a lot of stories about that relationship, and obviously Alex went on to coach with Rick before Rick passed away, so I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I specifically remember Alex Spence, on that Final Four run during the year, especially in the tournament, grabbing my jersey, screaming in my face, the right spots to be on the floor, the right way to position myself, the way to play somebody. I remember him behind me screaming force him left, force him right, timeouts. We'd walk out of the timeouts. He'd come over and grab me, Andre, everybody, and explain things. He was a coach from, he probably started having a coaching mentality when he was 5 years old. He was a player's coach, and he knew how to win. I mean, listen, Coach Majerus did all the preparation stuff, right? He was the ultimate preparation, get us all in the hotel ballroom. He had charts on the walls of every single player, their tendencies. He had his assistant coaches doing that, and then Coach would do a really good job of, laying it out, sort of teaching it to us. But the execution of it all came from Alex. He was the one, and Drew Hansen as well. We just had smart players on our team, but Alex was the leader of that. I look at that in kind of like football terms, Spence, like that smart quarterback that can become a head coach one day, right? I mean, your energetic, rah-rah kind of doofuses like me on the court, we're not born to be coaches, right? It's like Mike Singletary, who tried to coach the 49ers. You look at the guy, he would smash anybody in front of him, but X's and O's and coaches didn't exactly work. Well, Alex just was thinking like a coach as a player, and then he got his chance to coach in the G League. He's an assistant coach at St. Louis. He's an assistant coach at the Jazz. He developed Rudy Gobert. He taught Rudy Gobert the game. And then sometimes, Spence, it's just when you're sitting down and having conversations with someone and you're listening to the way that the game kind of plays out in their mind, and you're like, holy crap, that's something that I would have never thought of. Like if I'm playing this team, I would pick up their point guard with my 6'9" guy who's athletic just to disrupt the point guard in his fast break play or something like that. Alex would just say things about games and situations, and you're like, my gosh, that's actually really smart. So along with what he learned from Rick in preparing for games and just his kind of brilliance, X's and O's, he's going to be phenomenal, I think, for Utah.
So your points about the collective are very well taken. And I said this a couple times over the past few weeks as the search was kind of going on. whether it's Alex, whether it's Richard Pitino, whether you resurrect Rick Majerus, whoever it is going to ask Mark Harlan and Taylor Randall simply the same question. Where are we at economically? What is the financial infrastructure of this program? Can I keep up with not just the schools in the Big 12, but every school across America, not the least of which, Britt, is a school about 40 miles down south that this year has 2 7-figure players on their roster, and next year is paying A.J. DeBantis $7 million for 5 months of basketball. So as you talk to, your former teammates and other people connected to the program, what is, I guess the way I'll ask it, Britt, is what's the confidence level that right now the Crimson Collective or whatever Utah is going to utilize for the economic health of the program is where it needs to be to compete? Because it doesn't matter how good your coach is. Like, there's no such thing as a great coach that did not have great players. You have to have talent. Yeah. And I don't think Craig had enough talent, quite frankly, but that's a different topic. Is there optimism and confidence in the alumni base that this school is where it needs to be to support its basketball program financially?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. I don't know numbers on the budget, but I just know that there needs to be obviously something brought to the table to give Alex something to work with, because you're absolutely right. Alex can be as good of a coach as we possibly can get. He is, but the players got to be able to utilize the coaching or be talented. It's like I've always said, either to you or somebody, I said, you can give Stevie Wonder a Corvette, doesn't mean he can drive it, right? So you can give Alex Jensen and all of his amazing coaching to a bunch of crappy players, doesn't mean they're going to be able to utilize it. You got to get good players. And I don't think Alex needs 6, 7, 8 phenomenal players. I think he needs 2 to 3. And honestly, that's what Majerus did. That was his, like I said earlier, his MO. He had 3 NBA guys, maybe a fourth in me who dipped his toes in the NBA waters, and a fifth with Alex himself a little bit. But you get 3 just absolute studs, and we've got to find a way. The university has to find a way to give Alex, a budget to do that. And I think, again, everyone can say they're a good coach, but there really are just some that get the game at an intelligent level. I apologize, I keep using football terminology, but there's just some of those special coaches out there, right, that you see that know how to take whatever roster they have, a Nick Saban, right, and turn it into a championship caliber team, because it's not just X's and O's, it's culture as well. And you create a culture that's like, when you come into this practice, no one's better than the other person. Everyone treats each other the same. Everyone works just as hard as the other person. I'll never forget, I think it was you and I were either questioning or asking questions to Coach Popovich, or we were listening to David Locke ask him questions. And Popovich said something that I'll never forget. He said, I can yell at Tim Duncan the same way I can yell at a rookie. And that's culture that he created there at the Spurs that made them such a winning franchise forever. And Majerus created that, right? Winning coaches create that. That's what Alex will be able to create. So again, 3 to, if you can get 4, studs, but the rest of them, I think he'll be able to recruit players from Utah or the Mountain West area and just make up for what he doesn't have in a depth of 7 players with really good coaching, with team basketball, so I hope, Spence, and I believe that they're capable of doing it, that they can come up with a budget to take care of, some of those big stars. It might not happen next year, right? But I think if you give Alex a chance to prove himself and he brings in some awesome assistants that can go out there and find the right players, I think it's doable.
All right, let me move in this direction because, I can remember talking with you and some other alums as the Larry Kraskowiak era was kind of unfolding. And it felt like there were, I don't want to speak for you, so I'm just going to ask the question and give you the space. It felt like there were maybe some alums that didn't feel like Larry was embracing, that element of what Utah basketball is. I don't fully recall, but I'm bringing it up because I'm going to play devil's advocate here a little bit, Britt. And then again, I'm just going to lay back and give you the space because when I had Josh on, he referenced that a lot of alums attempted to contact Craig during the 4 years, and he wasn't necessarily amenable to those connections. Paraphrasing a bit, you can go listen to the Josh Grant interview up on our podcast page.
And look, as much as anybody, I respect and appreciate the history of Utah basketball and guys like you and that team that was around when I was in school with you as your peer. I don't know that it really is the job of the head coach to answer every alumni phone call when you have a job to do. So to be clear, I think there is a role for past Utes. Certainly, I mean, now that Alex is the coach, I'm sure it will change. But what's fair to say about what portion of the job description says that that's something that you need to do? And how do you balance that line, Britt, between appeasing the alums and also doing your job? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like every alumni, former player, feels like they're not getting treated like good enough. I mean, I remember I was mentored by some dude at NC State when I was in the D League, and he was complaining to me that NC State wasn't treating him good enough, and yet he and I sat on the front row of an NC State North Carolina basketball game, and I'm looking around like, what are you complaining about? You know, I've heard BYU football players, complain that they're not treated. I kind of feel like that it's just something we all, like, if we're not getting all the gear we want and not being treated with like front row tickets, we all just bitch and complain. I think it's kind of just in our DNA. So, I mean, Josh might be right about some stuff, but every time I called Craig, he was nice, invited me to practice, had me speak to the team, but I'm a real likable guy. And so
Good point.
People really like having me around.
Good point.
There's a difference there. And Josh, I'm like, I don't know if I'd invite him to the dinner table. No, I'm kidding. If Josh is listening, he's going to hate my guts. Listen, I just think everyone kind of gets that feel and that mentality, like I should be being treated better. And who knows, right? Maybe for Craig, and because the team wasn't doing that great, it was hard for him to have some of the former superstars like Josh Grant around. Maybe for him and his staff, it just felt like almost like they were letting us down. So it's like, what do you think they're going to do? Call us up and invite us over for breakfast every morning? Probably not. You know, I mean, look, winning solves everything. It even solves like all of us former alumni guys boo-hooing that we're not getting good enough treatment. If the program's winning, the doors are open, and they want everyone at practice. They want everyone a part of it. But that would just be my guess, is that Craig was probably not feeling like all that great. And Josh, I know, has a good relationship with Alex, and so maybe he'll be inviting Josh in every once in a while into practice. I don't know what he wants, but Alex is going to bring his own team, his own coaching staff that he wants. I keep hearing rumors, Spence, that he might get Andre Miller. I think it would be a smart move to do that, but I don't know, right? And until you're like in that coaching world and you're making all those daily decisions and phone calls, and you're in the trenches, the bus trips, the plane trips, the hotel trips, and you're around the personalities that are going to help you win, who knows, right? So I actually have no idea who Alex is going to bring on board. I mean, I've had people texting me, tell Alex to bring you in. I'm like, yeah, I've been working for General Motors for the last 9 years in the car world. He's going to bring me in? What the hell am I going to tell all these players? Your tires look like they have bad tread on them? I'm like, people are so funny. You should call you to be an assistant. I'm like, good hell, no. He's not going to call me to be an assistant. But I'm going to go cheer him on,
Would you be interested? For real, would you be interested in being an assistant coach for Alex?
No. I would be flattered if he asked me, but no, I would not be interested. I just want him to do well. I want the university to do well, and I just want to quit. I want to keep on complaining as a former player that I'm not getting enough gear.
And look, I don't mean to be disrespectful, right? Like, by the way, can you imagine and I told Josh this when he joined the show. For our younger Ute fans who didn't get to see him play, if Josh Grant was born like 10 or 15 years later, he would have been a 15-year NBA guy.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, no doubt.
I always say that about you, too. I don't mean to rub it in. But.
No, it's okay. You've told me that hundreds of times. We've had wonderful conversations on that. Listen, I mean, you can sit and play the game all the time. Like, I should have this career, I should have that career. At the end of the day, I got to play in a national championship. I got to make amazing friends. And now when we have barbecues, we all just sit around and make fun of Coach Majerus, God rest his soul, as he's dead. And we laugh our heads off. You know what I mean? Because what else is there to do other than just try to make fun of the situations we were in that were actually pretty brutal? You would probably consider a lot of them straight up mental abuse. the way he coached us. He ain't coaching that way in today's world, I'll tell you that much. But
no, you can't. Go ahead.
No, but we had a good group of guys. Funny enough, we still have a text message thread with myself, Jeff, Nick Jacobson, Trace Caton, and Chris Burgess. He's on there, but we spend most of the time just ripping on BYU because we're still mad at him for being a traitor and leaving us and going down there. But we've kept him on the thread just because we feel like it's still a good thing to do, you know.
For sure. I actually wondered if they would talk to Burge about taking the head coaching job. But since you brought up Burgess, let me move over here, Britt, because
I love Burgess, by the way. I don't think he's a traitor.
Who doesn't?
He's a good friend.
Yeah, everybody loves Burge. There's nothing not to love. If you don't like Chris Burgess, it's a you problem, quite frankly. But let me discuss this dynamic. You'll be good with this because I've known Alex a long time and his wife Natalie. They're great people, but you know them on a level that I don't. And Alex is what I would describe as a little bit of an introvert. I don't think that's a bad thing per se, and don't mistake his quiet nature for anything other than him being introspective. But is he going, Britt, to have to come out of the show a little bit? And a lot of guys that are a little bit quiet and a little bit dry are the funniest guys behind the scenes with loud and funny personalities. They just don't like to be front facing to the public. So if we take away the dynamic of Alex as a coach and a player developmental mind, which he's obviously elite at, Alex the person, what does that look like on the recruiting trail?
You know what? He'll probably have to adjust, right? Just like all of us when we go into some kind of a new situation. This is his first head coaching job as the face of the program. But Alex actually, he's a funny, witty guy. He and I have a lot of the same similarities in movies. We joke about the same stuff. But as far as just going in and sitting down in a living room and kind of brightening the place up, I mean, that's okay that's not like his his number one strength, but his ability to probably sit and tell a parent why his coaching style and what he already knows about the player and what they need to get better at and how he'll help them get to the NBA or how he'll help them have the best career possible will probably be how he'll close deals and sell and win. You know what I mean? That's going to be his strength. Will he probably find himself needing to I don't know, get a little more enthusiastic? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, for heaven's sakes, Majerus came in my living room and told me I looked like an AIDS victim, right to my face, to my parents, and I still signed to go play with the guy. So I did it because they kept saying I would be the next Van Horn, or University of Utah is the place to put people into the NBA. So thanks, Coach, for the wonderful compliment. Where do I sign? Yeah, kind of weird, right? But I still went. So again, that was a different era than the era today. So I will adjust. He'll figure it out. He's actually a pretty fun guy to be around, so I'm not worried about that. And he's going to get some fun, some probably pretty dynamic assistant coaches. I mean, that's where I would actually love. If I think about being an assistant coach, Spence, I would have a lot of fun going to people's living rooms and selling their kid on why they would thrive and have a phenomenal experience in Salt Lake, in Utah. Being around, incredible people there, building a network there. It's a strong economy. So if they want to try to have a business mindset after basketball, there's opportunity there. That's where I would have fun. But I'm too locked into a career right now where I don't want to leave. And I'm not about to pull a Josh Grant and go beg Alex to hire me on radio. You know what I mean? I'm just kidding. He didn't do that. But it kind of felt like that.
Wow. Wow, Britton Johnson. Coming off the top rope, you're going to get a text.
You heard the interview. He was pretty much making it sound like he and Jimmy Soto should be hired. I thought it was funny. Good for him, man.
Britton,
Josh probably would be helpful.
I conducted the interview. I didn't hear it. I was the one who interviewed him.
That's right. See, I didn't put two and two together.
You heard the interview, he says.
Hey, I thought it was those bleepy, what's down the street on the other station.
I don't know what you're talking about. You have to pull ratings to exist in this market. Only one afternoon drive show does. So
the ones that freaking fired me because I forgot the general manager's name. Those guys.
Yeah, I don't. Again, that does not strike in a chord. I don't know what you're talking about. It's Lord Voldemort stuff over on this program. I appreciate how self-deprecating you are. I honestly think you'd be a phenomenal assistant coach. I really believe that to be true. I know that you're locked in and you've got a good career and you guys are doing well down south and all that. But I always tried to build up I was the Doc Rivers to the Britton Johnson on the radio, right? Like I was trying to build up your confidence and remind you that you are an NBA player. You did have a great career and you were, again, just a few years too late. With how the modern day game is played, you would have played in the pros for the NBA for more than a decade, Britt. I appreciate the self-deprecate. Here's the deal. A guy built like you needs the confidence I have. The guy with the confidence that I have needs a build like yours. If there was some way to merge our strengths, we'd be the white LeBron together is what we'd be.
Wait, whose face would we take?
Mine, dude.
Right?
Come on, dude. Come on. Don't be silly.
Yeah, because you look like Bradley Cooper and I look like Ichabod Crane. Is that what you're saying?
Stop it. See, I appreciate.
Come on.
You're a handsome guy. Look, Lindsay's a 10. She's not marrying some goob, all right? Take that as...
she has bad eyesight, right? Like, that she doesn't see well. So it's like,
right.
Man, I did marry a 10. I ain't going to lie.
Oh, Lindsay's the best.
I got lucky.
Yeah, she's great.
You.
This is bringing back good memories. So before
kind of mean sometimes, but that's okay.
No, all good, man. Before I set you loose, you've kind of alluded to it. The rumors are Andre as the lead assistant. Now, Andre is coaching in the G League. And look, I obviously, as a Gen Xer, somebody who grew up in the 90s, believes that the instant credibility and cachet you have when you walk into a gym with Andre Miller on your bench is too good to pass up. I don't know if the younger generation believes that, but before I set you loose, what would you have to say to our listeners about the type of assistant that Andre would make if Alex goes in that direction and Andre takes the job?
Oh, man. My interactions with Andre are always surprising because he was quiet, but he's one of those guys that when you just get him talking and you get him kind of loosened up a little bit, he starts to really tell you just how experienced he is in life. I mean, because he grew up in one of the poorest areas of the country in Compton, California, but grew up with a phenomenal mom that put education really, really high as a priority. And then you take a black kid from Compton who absolutely thrived in Salt Lake City, Utah, right? And then he goes and has a 19-year NBA career. Now he's coaching. I was with him when he learned to water ski in Lake Powell. He's one of these guys that he's always absorbing information and trying to learn as much as possible. And you just appreciate that about him. He's easy to be around. He's fun to be around. And he makes you he's going to make you a better player if you play with him. But I'm almost positive as a coach, he's going to be able to teach people, what he went through, he's going to be able to teach that and help them to make themselves a better player, whether that's on the court, whether that's making better decisions in life. I mean, Andre coming from probably not the greatest influences, in his childhood. I'm not talking about his parents or his family, but, some of the trouble that you can get in an area like that growing up, he became an incredible human being and made a ton for himself, not only just in basketball, but he's quite the business mind as well. I know he and our buddy Nick Jacobson do some businesses together. But then you don't just get handed a head coaching job in the G League in today's world unless, you're a good coach, unless you show that you can lead a team. I think he would be phenomenal, Spence. I don't know how you wouldn't want to take him. That ultimately is up to Alex Jensen. I know that there's some other candidates out there. I know that Alex is still close with Donnie Daniels, and Donnie Daniels' son is coaching in the college ranks right now. He's a phenomenal coach. And then Alex probably has a list of guys that he's passed through in his NBA career and his time at St. Louis that we don't even know about that he could bring in that would be awesome. So, Andre to me feels and sounds like a no-brainer, but I'm going to trust whatever Alex Jensen does.
You know what? Do you have time for one more? Because you just jarred my mind. Do you have time for one more question?
Your listeners are just listening with all ears right now. People have pulled over on the side of the road to keep this going. So let's go.
No, that's what we do. Sure. That you and I, that's what we do. All right. So one more question here because you just jarred something. You played in the D League, which is now the G League, And
Yeah.
Richard Smith, Smitty, he's now a consistent guest on the show. He did a really good job of kind of laying everything out last week about how hard it is to coach in the G League, because whether you're a player, whether you're a coach, whether you're a front office exec or a broadcaster or whatever, you don't want to be there. You are there as a means to an end, as a conduit to the big leagues.
Yeah.
So, what does that say about Alex, that in a difficult, challenging coaching spot, he won a G League title and won G League Coach of the Year? What does that say?
Well, listen, it says it's enormous, because everyone is like a wild dog going after a meal that it hasn't had for 20 days. Everyone's hungry. Players. It was funny because when I was in the G League, in my mind, I'm like, okay, this isn't as hard as the NBA, but it was harder than the NBA in a lot of ways. Spence, you and I sat and watched NBA games. Guys don't play defense the first three quarters. There was a night when I guarded Kevin Garnett, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, he doesn't seem like he cares that he's guarding me. I kind of just thought it's because he could care less because he didn't know who I was, but he's playing 82 games, and they start to kind of sag, or they start to sort of drag a little bit in the middle of the season, and then they save it for the fourth quarter. Where in the G League, D League, the minor leagues, from the moment the ball goes up, it's 100 miles per hour. Everyone's trying to get out of there. Every coach is coaching as intense as possible. The referees are dialed in. The front office, like you said, is dialed in. So the intensity of it was insane because everyone wanted out of there. So, yes, for him to win in an environment like that, look, it wasn't like the NCAA tournament, but there was a physicality and an aggressive kind of manner on the floor that reminded me of like the NCAA tournament. Because again, it was like every man for himself, but everyone trying to just absolutely go as hard as possible, because you looked up in the stands and it was full of NBA scouts. And if it wasn't full of NBA scouts, you knew every game your agent was trying to get the best game possible to send it to the next team. So I think it's remarkable that Alex won a championship in that league, because he was coaching in a very intense environment. So, yeah, I think that's huge. I'm glad you brought that up.
So we have a developing situation. Porter, before we catch a break, you informed me that one Josh Grant is open to an in-studio interview if we can get Britton up from St. George.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Sounds fun.
All right. We'll see if we can get Britt. Maybe he's up here for Alex Jensen's press conference on Monday. All right, we will catch a quick break. Coming up on the other side, we will launch into a little sports court on a Thursday before we get to the 5 o'clock hour of the program. So keep it right here on ESPN 700. It is Sports Court time. We do it every Thursday, right about now, with our good friends over at Handy and Handy. Garrett flying solo today, no Preston, so let's dig into it. Garrett, happy Thursday, buddy. How we doing?
Hey, doing well, Spence. How are you?
I'm well. I appreciate your time. All right, let's start out with a story that has a local tie. As a former snowboarder who competed in the Salt Lake City Olympic Games in 2002, has been put on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. And there's a $10 million reward offered here. New information for me, Garrett. The floor is yours.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy story. This guy, his name is Ryan Wedding, and as you mentioned, he participated in the 2002 Olympics here in Salt Lake. He was a snowboarder, I think a slalom event that he participated in. Anyway, a little history on him. I mean, he did have an arrest in 2010, a drug arrest, conviction. Looks like he maybe did some time in prison. But what's going on right now is he has made the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list. He goes by names like El Jefe, Giant, Public Enemy. Anyway, they think maybe he's in Colombia or Mexico, but he has run a transnational drug trafficking network. They've smuggled hundreds of kilos of cocaine from Colombia to the U.S. and Canada over the years. They're calling him a, quote, very dangerous man. There's had people killed, so a pretty wild story. My favorite part of the story, though, is this quote from FBI assistant director from the L.A. field office, and she said, Wedding went from shredding powder on the slopes of the Olympics to distributing powder cocaine on the streets of U.S. cities and in his native Canada. So anyway, I don't know. Maybe this guy's riding the ski lifts. So be careful out there. But there's $10 million that the FBI is going to hand out to the public if we can get him turned in.
All right, let's move over to a situation regarding Odell Beckham Jr., who has been named in a lawsuit that's tied to the number of issues that Sean P. Diddy Combs is dealing with in front of him. Also, new info for me, Garrett. Go ahead. Floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, and this has got to be, of all the lawsuits that you could be, I don't know, named in or implicated in, this has got to be one of the last ones you want to be brought up, your name associated with in any way. So this is, I'm sure everybody knows the lawsuits, multiple, and prosecution that Sean P. Diddy Combs is facing. And so this lawsuit in particular was filed last October. And at that time, Odell Beckham Jr. was not named, but the lawsuit was amended last week and made public that Odell Beckham Jr. Is implicated in this by the plaintiff. Again, this is her civil lawsuit, the victims, that he participated in this sexual assault, gang rape, is what the allegation is in the lawsuit. Of course, Odell Beckham Jr. has come out and said, hey, I had nothing to do with this. This is fabricated. This is a lie. I don't know this person. I don't know anything about it. So, I mean, that's basically all there is now. But, I mean, the net is just kind of widening here as people are implicated. Again, speaking of, long-standing criminal schemes and enterprises, this is one of them, and Odell Beckham Jr.'s, again, facing a civil suit at this point, so he'll have to respond to that.
All right, moving over to a story that has local interest as a result of players like Jake Retzlaff, BYU's quarterback. And we covered the initial story about Diego Pavia's case. This is about NCAA eligibility rules. But there was a recent ruling that a baseball player who was kind of trying to do the same thing that Pavia did, it was denied. So he's not going to be able to continue playing baseball. So let's unpack this. What does it mean for our local fans around here that are hoping some of the JUCO kids that are playing for our teams can come back and play some more?
Yeah, exactly right. And this story's it's just been a moving target. And I thought that it was going to be settled the last time we talked about it, like you said. So we've talked about Diego Pavia, the Vanderbilt QB, successfully granted his injunction to play more time after his JUCO years. Same thing with a Wisconsin redshirt senior, Nazir Forkareen. It was given more time to play and eligibility. Basically, the argument comes down to this, is how we are viewing NCAA eligibility rules in this, post-NIL world that we're living in, where these used to just be eligibility rules, and the NCAA could have their rules, and it wasn't an issue. Well, now your eligibility is tied to making money, right? And so there's this commercial interest, and so that's why it all of a sudden brings in antitrust arguments, and in my opinion, that's why we saw in these first two cases, the Wisconsin player and the Vanderbilt quarterback, where they were granted injunctions. And honestly, Spence, I thought that the judges were going to just go ahead and continue down that course. But now there's a couple of cases denying players' requests for injunction, and one you mentioned is this player at University of Tennessee, a baseball player. There was also a University of Georgia baseball player. And so the judges they're mixed now. I mean, we've got 2 for, 2 against, whether or not NCAA eligibility rules are commercial in nature. So I think this could go a couple ways. The Vanderbilt QB's case is on appeal. On the one hand, NCAA could let these cases play out, let the appeals play out. Does it make it to the Supreme Court and we get a decision on this issue? How long does that take? Another way for this to go is maybe, would Congress get involved, right? And we get a federal law on this issue of eligibility to make a decision. Because right now, if you're a player, if you're a JUCO player like Jake Retzloff, and you've had a couple years at a JUCO years, I don't think it's clear anymore whether or not you're going to get that injunction to play and get a few more years.
All right, final one for today. And this video made the rounds of former Jet Mark Gastineau confronting Brett Favre, claiming that Brett Favre gave Michael Strahan his sack record. And now Mark is suing ESPN for $25 million. So fill us in here, Garrett. What's going on?
Yeah, Mark Gastineau, part of the New York Sack Exchange, the early 80s Jets teams that had that great front four. And as you mentioned, so there's a 30 for 30 documentary out about this. It's pretty interesting. I mean, Gastineau, he held the single-season sack record for, I think it was from 1984 until Michael Strahan broke that record by half a sack. So Gastineau had the record, 22 sacks. And what happened, I don't know if it was the last play of the game or pretty close, but, the allegation is Favre basically, he served up that sack to Michael Strahan on a silver platter and just made it real easy and gave him the record. And so fast forward, 2023, there's a memorabilia signing thing, and Favre is there and Gastineau's there, and Favre goes up to shake Gastineau's hand, and what ensues is kind of an icy exchange between the two, and Gastineau basically accuses Favre of taking a dive and handing the record to Strahan. And so that gets included in the documentary, and that's where the lawsuit comes up. Gastineau saying, hey, wait a minute, I had, in my contract with you guys, I had approval. I was granted the authority to make approval about final content and what was going to be in the documentary. Second, he's saying that this was filmed without my knowledge or consent, and that this really doesn't give the whole context. And so it's been embarrassing for him, and he's saying it's misrepresented him, and so he's suing ESPN over this. I'm not sure where the $25 million number comes from. I mean, he's going to have to prove damages, and, I'm sure, on the other hand, he signed a lot of contracts with ESPN to allow them access to him to do the 30 for 30. So, interesting story, but I've seen a little bit of the 30 for 30. It's a good watch.
All right, Garrett, before I set you loose for today, for any of our listeners who have legal questions, how can they get a hold of you? Over at Handy and Handy.
Yeah, give us a call. We'd be happy to talk to you about any of your legal questions, especially in the area of personal injury, which is really what we do. You can reach us at 801-264-6677 or go to our website, handylawutah.com.
Garrett, thank you, my friend. Have a great weekend. Look forward to chatting next week.
Thank you, Spence. Take care.
All right, check them out. Any legal questions you have, brought to you today by our friends at Burt Brothers. With over 30 years of experience in nearly 30 locations, Burt Brothers ASE certified technicians Bring expertise and professionalism to every interaction, industry-leading warranties and low-price tire guarantees. One-stop shop for reliable repairs and maintenance, from tires and alignments to fluids and brakes, offering a full range of automotive services tailored to meet your needs. Now offering value tire options such as Americus and Summit Tire, starting at just $69 with warranties that go up to 70,000 miles. As one of the few AAA certified shops in Utah, Burt Brothers upholds the highest standards in automotive service. Stop by Burt Brothers or Tire Busters locations or schedule an appointment today to experience the trusted service that has made them a Utah favorite for over 3 decades. Burt Brothers, doing it better since day one. More information can be found online at burtbrothers.com. All right, St. Patrick's Day is right around the corner. Celebrate St. Patrick's Day Saturday, March the 15th at Gracie's with live music, giveaways, games, photo booths, and more right in the heart of Salt Lake City. Get details and RSVP right now at graciesslc.com. And before we catch a break, it's time now for your PGA Tour scoreboard update brought to you by our friends at Uinta Golf. Check them out at worldwidegolfshops.com. It is the 5th major for a lot of players who love this tournament. It's the Players' Championship taking place at TPC Sawgrass down in Florida. And Lucas Glover, as well as CJ Spahn and Camilo Villegas, all 6 under par. Let's get some notables. Billy Horschel and Rory McIlroy at 5 under par. Denny McCarthy finds himself at 4 under, as does Ricky Fowler. Adam Hadwin. As we kind of scroll down, it was a tough day for Tony Finau. Scotty Scheffler's at 3 under par, as is Patrick Cantlay and Austin Eckroat. Jordan Spieth had a chip-in eagle. He's at 2 under par. See if Jordan can do something this weekend. Colin Morikawa. Keegan Bradley at 2 under as well. Ludwig Oberg at 1 under par. That's where we find Justin Rose and Tommy Fleetwood. And Tony Finau, round 1, Players' Championship, 4 over. That's good for 116th. He's going to have a big day tomorrow if he wants to play through the weekend. Joel Damon is also at 4 over as well. All right, 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. The 5 o'clock hour of the program comes your way on a Thursday. Up next right here on ESPN 700. All right, let's get it. It is Drive at 5 time on a Thursday afternoon. Rain has let up, at least out here in Murray. We are in the beginning stages of one of the biggest snowstorms that we've had so far in the mountains that's going to take place over the weekend. Potentially a little snow on the benches tomorrow, then it's going to warm up Sunday and then Monday. But your commute home on a Thursday afternoon starts right now, and as it is every day, it's good to have you with us. We are live today with our friends at Tim Dahle. We've been at a number of Tim Dahle locations, but today's a new one for us. It's the Tim Dahle Used Auto Mart in Murray. It's 4545 South Main Street. So put that address in your GPS and then follow it on out. That's the best thing to do, trust me. If you do not put it in your GPS, you will get lost like I did. So there's a cool thing going on right now. There's a new piece of legislation that was introduced that could save you thousands of dollars. It's called Senate Bill 541. And you could potentially save up to $4,000 on a huge selection of EV and hybrid vehicles that qualify for the incentive. The only way you'll know is if you come on out here and then sit down with them and ask them what the deal is. So if you're in the market for a new car and you've never driven a hybrid or an EV vehicle, this could be your shot to do it and save up to $4K. So 4545 South Main Street is where you find us. Come on by and say hello and inquire about whether or not you qualify for this new deal where you could save $4,000 off one of these vehicles at 4545 South Main Street. We also have passes for the Sportsman's Expo if you're into such things. If you're into hunting and outdoors and guns in America, we'll send you there at the Sportsman's Expo. So come on out, 4545 South Main Street here in Murray, our good friends at the Tim Dahle Used Auto Mart. All right, the 5 o'clock hour of the program today is brought to you by the 2025 Big 12 Gymnastics Championship. You can watch the best of the best Saturday, March the 22nd at the Mavericks Center. Get your tickets today at maverickscenter.com. All right, couple of things going on here. We got the Players' Championship going on in the world of pro golf. Lucas Glover is your leader in the clubhouse at 6 under par. BYU and Iowa State played a tremendous college basketball game this morning. Tipped off at 10:30 in Kansas City. Well, 10:30 here. But it did tip off in Kansas City. It's the Phillips 66 Big 12 Championship quarterfinal. And BYU found out about 2 hours before tip that they were going to run into some real good fortune. Keyshawn Gilbert, the second leading scorer for Iowa State, and Tamian Lipsey, a two-time Big 12 point guard, all Big 12 point guard, did not play due to injuries. Probably two of the three best players on Iowa State's roster. Iowa State came out gangbusters. They could not miss a shot. Curtis Jones picked up the slack, 7 of 15 from three. He dropped 31. And they could not miss in the first half, and BYU did everything they could just to hang in because BYU did not start off on fire. Then in the second half, BYU kind of flipped the script. They were able to knock down shots, and more importantly, they were able to contain Iowa State on the defensive side. And BYU gets a win, 96-92. Brigham Young has now won 9 straight basketball games. That is their 5th quad one win. And over the past couple of weeks, they went down to McHale and beat Arizona. They dump trucked Kansas and Provo, and now they have 2 wins over an Iowa State team that once upon a time was thought to be a potential Final Four dark horse type contender. Richie Saunders continued to play his way into consideration for the Big 12 Player of the Year, quite frankly. Richie had 23 points. He had 5 assists in 26 minutes of play. Former UK Bakeda had 10 boards. He also had 9 points. Trevin Nell hit all 4 of his 3-point shots. He had 14. And Fus Traore off the bench had 15 points on 5 of 6 shooting. So BYU is able to advance now to the semifinals where they are going to play Houston. Houston actually had a little bit of a more difficult time with Colorado than I think anybody was expecting. Houston went into the locker room at half with a 5-point lead, I believe, but ultimately was able to hold off a pretty pesky Colorado team that may have been the worst team in the conference all year. And Houston gets the win 77-68. So now it's Houston and BYU in the Big 12 semifinals. And if you're a BYU fan, man, this is a team that's playing as well as any BYU team, in my opinion, since Fredette was around, since it was the Jimmer years. They had some good teams under Mark Pope, but when you look at this team on paper, maybe they don't have the top-end pro talent. I think Yegor Demon's going to be a very good pro, but he's got a lot of work to do on his game. Cannon Catchings, who is their other thought to be legit pro prospect, actually did not play today. He has missed, I think, 5 straight games now. So BYU Houston tomorrow at 5 o'clock Mountain Time, and it is the Phillips 66 Big 12 Championship semifinal for the chance to go play in the Big 12 final. BYU at this point obviously is a lock to make the NCAA tournament. Can they get higher than a 5 seed? I don't know. I mean, if they win the Big 12, I think you have to make an argument they might be a top 3 or a top 4 seed. Right now in Big 12 action, Texas Tech leads Baylor 18-8. Tonight it's going to be Kansas and Arizona, and that game will be at 7:30 on ESPN and ESPN Plus. The winner of Kansas-Arizona will advance on to play the winner of Baylor-Texas Tech, and the winner of that game will play the winner of BYU and Houston. So it is the madness of March. A lot of fun action going on right now. Utah State's turn will be tonight. They're taking on UNLV. That's going to be a 9:30 tip time at the Thomas & Mack Center in Las Vegas, Nevada. Utah State a slight favorite in that game. This is a quarterfinal matchup for the Aggies. So we'll see if Jared Calhoun and his team can continue to march on. You know, it's interesting. I was going to do a segment today on prospects for you guys to watch during the NCAA tournament and the March Madness tournament, or I should say the conference championship tournaments. But the 3 best prospects for Jazz fans to hone in on, we may not see for a minute. So the big story out of college basketball today is that Cooper Flagg had to leave Duke's win over, I think it was Georgia Tech today. Duke beat Georgia Tech 78-70. And Cooper Flagg left that game with a sprained ankle. And if you watch the replay, it looks like one of those sprained ankles that could keep you out for weeks. And Duke has already announced that while the x-rays came back negative, he is questionable the rest of the way in the ACC tournament, and they don't know his status for the NCAA tournament. So Cooper Flagg, of course, the best prospect in all of college basketball this year. But the other 2 prospects are going home as well. So Dylan Harper, and if you missed Tony Jones earlier, some good stuff from Tony on NBA prospects. Dylan Harper appears to have played himself into that number 2 spot, and it's not really close. Dylan and Rutgers lost to USC yesterday out of the Big Ten, which still feels really weird. Big Ten tournament yesterday, USC took Rutgers to overtime and then beat them. So Dylan Harper played 46 minutes. He had 27 points, 8 assists, 8 boards, 2 steals, a couple of blocks. He was only 1 of 8 from 3. Did get to the free throw line, made all 8 of his free throws. Then his teammate Ace Bailey yesterday, in 33 minutes of play, went 7 of 13 from the floor, had 17 points, 7 boards, 3 steals. But they're done. They're not going dancing, and they're done as it pertains to the Big Ten tournament. It's weird that 2 of the 3 best NBA draft prospects plays for a team that went 8 and 12 in conference play and 15 and 17 overall. So I was going to do that segment today, but Cooper Flagg might not play the rest of the way, and USC eliminated Rutgers yesterday. The Utah Jazz are off tonight. They're going to welcome in the Toronto Raptors coming up tomorrow night here in Salt Lake at the Delta Center. The Jazz played the Grizzlies last night, and they had a 115-114 lead. And then Memphis scored the final 8 points of the game. John Morant hit a 3-point shot, and the Jazz go home losers once again. 7 straight L's for the Jazz. They've lost 9 of their last 10 games in this battle to attempt to stay in the bottom 3 in pro basketball. If you stay in the bottom 3 in the NBA, you have a 14% chance at the number 1 overall pick, and hopefully you just stay in the top 3 in the draft. The draft lottery night will come our way in May, and as a Jazz fan, that might be the next night you can actually get excited. The Jazz were fined $100,000 yesterday for violating the league's player participation policy, and it came as a result of Lauri Markkanen missing 9 games when, according to what the league found out, Lauri was healthy. That's not breaking news. We know that Walker's been healthy when they've held him out. We know that Markkanen's been healthy. We know that most of the players they hold out incrementally have been healthy. But Lauri falls into what is categorized as a, quote, star player. And the reason he falls into that category is he was an all-star now a couple of years ago. Not this year, not last year, but the year before when the game was here in Salt Lake. Lauri was an all-star, and that's recent enough for him to fall into this category that if you are an NBA team and you have a star player, quote-unquote star player, if you hold him out consecutively during a stretch in which he's healthy And they also lean into road games and nationally televised games. The Jazz don't have any nationally televised games because nobody wants to watch them. But this is the deal as a result of Lowry actually making the All-Star game. And under these stipulations and guidelines in pro basketball, if you have one of those players on your roster and you make the decision to hold him out more than a few games when all indications are that he's healthy, you will be fine. Now, a second offense, if the Jazz do this again and the NBA finds them breaking these protocols, the second offense will be a $250,000 fine. The third offense is a $1.25 million fine. And then every offense after that, it's $1 million on top of it. So I know the Jazz ownership, they've got plenty of money. I can tell you one thing I know about rich people being around, a lot of them, none of them like to lose money. So the Jazz will welcome in the Raptors as they continue kind of their march to the bottom. Kind of a fun night of NBA basketball last night. Saw the Oklahoma City Thunder take care of the Boston Celtics at TD Garden. A lot of people believe that's kind of an NBA Finals matchup. Only time will tell. Cleveland, certainly. Denver, they'll have some things to say about that. A little bit of a lighter night in pro basketball tonight. There was some breaking news earlier. De'Aaron Fox is having surgery for the Spurs, and so he's out the rest of the way. We'll see if the Spurs are fined, because my guess is he doesn't need it. But San Antonio loses Victor Wembanyama, and so they have decided to go all in on being bad. Turner Sports has a double dip for you tonight. It's the Lakers and the Bucks. That's your early game coming up in about 13 minutes. Then the late game will be the Kings and the Warriors. Okay, wrapping it up. Final segment of the program on a Thursday afternoon. Special thanks to our good friends today, the Tim Daly Used Auto Mart. It's 4545 South Main Street. Stop by. If you couldn't make it today, stop by tomorrow and find out if you qualify for this $4,000 savings with Senate Bill 541. And you can save $4,000 on a EV or a hybrid vehicle that qualify for this incentive. But you got to come out here and they'll let you know. You can save $4,000 on a Tesla, on an Audi, BMW, Polestar, Kia, and more. Time's running out, though, so come on by. Not all buyers qualify, so come on out and check it out at 4545 South Main Street here on this Thursday afternoon. So special thanks to them for having us out today. All right, from a local perspective, it really is Utah State tonight, and that's about it. Utah State's taking on UNLV, and you got to stay up late. That's a 9:30 p.m. Mountain Time tip. Utah Hockey Club and the Utah Jazz are both in action tomorrow. The Hockey Club's in Seattle to take on the Kraken. What a weird name. And then the Jazz are hosting Toronto tomorrow night here in Salt Lake at the Delta Center. Saturday will bring us some soccer. The Utah Royals, Ali Setner, my goodness, she is a rising star in the world of women's professional soccer. They are on the road at the Bay, and then RSL is on the road taking on Houston. So that's your soccer weekend ahead. And then earlier today, as we've discussed on the show, Brigham Young took care of Iowa State 96-92 to advance to the semifinals of the Big 12 championship against Houston. All right, Porter, hopefully we are not responsible for any Ute-on-Ute crime. After the Britton Johnson hit, the Josh Grant hit, I feel like we may have been directly responsible for what could become an untenable situation.
Maybe. Or maybe we're responsible for a situation that could bring us some really good radio in the means of getting them together. That's my goal, ultimately. And I think it would be fun. I think it would be fun because these two, going back and forth on them, going back and forth, but it's really just the Spider-Man meme pointing at each other. Mm-hmm. They kind of sound exactly like each other outside of Britain, being very content working for General Motors. It seems like they're kind of on similar wavelengths, but approaching it maybe with a little different perspective, which is actually kind of fun to dive into.
I got to be honest, after listening back to the Britton Johnson interview, well, a couple things. First of all, I cannot believe how bad my voice sounds this week, so let me repeat this before we say goodnight. If this is your first time listening to this show, I really hope you give us another shot next week. I am sick as a dog. So getting through these shows this week has been an absolute bear, but I did not understand how poor my voice sounded until we played that back. But Britton took some shots at Josh. He said he was begging for a job, and I'm sure a guy as proud as Josh Grant didn't love that. But at the end of the day, hopefully it's all love because both of them wanted the same thing, and that is Alex Jensen as the head coach of the Utes, and that's what we got. So there you go. All right, Porter, before we get out of here for a Thursday, what comes our way on a Friday edition of the show?
On a Friday, Spence, we will catch up with our guy Dave McMiniman. He had to stop on to Sports Center when he was going to come on with us, so got called into the flagship. I know, more important, I guess. Chris Comrani will stop by on a Friday, as he usually does. Paul Pugmire will give us the latest in the PGA Tour world. Of course, we'll get the update live from the tournament this weekend. And then Ken Pomeroy. To finish off the week, we're going to spend an entire hour with probably the premier voice when it comes to bracketology, NCAA March Madness. It is Ken Palm and Ken Pomeroy to finish off the week, going into Selection Sunday, going into conference tournament stuff. Should be exciting.
I can promise you, if you are tasked with filling out a bracket, whether it's a family challenge, a friend challenge, a work challenge, and you don't know what you're doing, Ken Pomeroy is the guy that you should listen to. So tune in for that on a Friday show. We'll say goodnight. Special thank you to Tony Jones, Josh Grant, Neil Smith, as well as the great Britton Johnson. For any of the sound you may have missed from the show, head on over to the website, which is ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us on the go. And then finally, check out our podcast page when you have a moment. We do have a pod. We podcast our show, and it's good for you because you can listen to whatever part of it you want to on your time. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. That's available wherever you get your shows. Subscribe, rate, review, say nice things, give us all the stars. It helps. For Tara, my on-site tech, Porter, the producer of this show, my name is Spence Checketts. Saying goodnight. Enjoy your Thursday evening. Talk to you on a Friday Drive. As always, you can catch it right here on ESPN 700.